Welcome everybody to postwrestling.com and youtube.com/upnext for our AEW Full Gear post show. My name is Wai Ting, and I am joined by
Hello.
Braden Herrington here with Davie Portman.
Yes, from upNXT.
Yes.
And this was normally our upNXT show, I guess, but it's free because it's a super show tonight.
It's a super post show. It's a post-nextra.
Post-nextra, yes.
Post wrestling, yes.
Forget Shane McMahon in Panama City. Like, this is the simulcast of all simulcasts.
Wow, and it's on our YouTube. We're on upNXT YouTube.
We're live.
Yeah,
we're completely live right now.
We're live. Shout out the YouTube room and the chat. We did a watch along earlier tonight, and that was a lot of fun.
That's fire. Some say the chat's fire.
You would. We went full gear, and it was fun. You didn't join our watch along, Wai. What was the deal with that?
Honestly, like, I don't know how you guys manage to like take notes while like entertaining a chat room at the same time. I can't multitask like that. So
the
I have to really focus on
we
the show.
don't multitask. We just steal everyone's comments on the chat and then make up like our own opinions.
Just steal all the jokes.
What we do. We just steal the jokes.
Well, I guess that kind of works too. I mean, you're basically a collective of minds coming together for one opinion.
We're all up next.
Yes, we are all up next.
Yeah,
we're just the filter.
The upNexperts out there. But it's crazy because we're getting to do a show with you. We haven't really got to do that. We haven't really got to hang out as well. We got to see you with the giant reunion this past summer. But we miss you.
Yeah, for Davie. Well, likewise, man. It's I haven't been doing a whole lot of socializing in general, so this turned out to be a great excuse as any, and the chance to get to analyze and dissect a pro wrestling show with you, I definitely welcome it. So it definitely is, it's twofold. I mean, on the one hand, like, we had two separate shows today. Of course, we had New Japan Pro Wrestling's Power Struggle show. So John and I split up to cover those ones. He covered it with WH, which is available on our Patreon if you wanted to listen to that. So at night, I had to throw up the signal, the BDE signal, to get my friends to hop on so that we can all do this one.
The Brain Davie experience is always ready, Wai, and we're here for you tonight. We've watched some. We were just talking right before going live that we were like a year ago watching these pay-per-views and watching events together, and like, now we can't do it, but because of technology we can Zoom and go live over YouTube and still be able to do it. But we're here for Full Gear. We're not totally caught up to Power Struggle yet. We were trying to finish it before the show tonight, but there's a lot of wrestling.
Don't worry, no spoilers. I'm very much on the protecting spoilers.
Okay,
yeah,
good to know.
Good to know. Yeah, we try to do that.
I can't say that about the chat room though.
So we obviously we're NXT friends, and every Wednesday we go live on our YouTube for our NXT post shows, and we have a strict rule in the chat that there's no AEW spoilers, and usually the chat is they're pretty respectful. They go along with it. Yeah, even though some people like to watch Wednesdays with NXT and AEW on different screens or flick channels. Like, we're the NXT guys, but we're huge AEW fans. We're pretty big, so we were looking forward to this event tonight.
Which is also why I really wanted to talk to you guys, because, of course, people know that John and I do Rewind to Dynamite every single Wednesday. And even though you guys are the NXT guys, you also review Dynamite every single week on your Patreon. So you're more than caught up.
Oh, yeah.
We do, yeah. We're right from the first episode of Dynamite. We've been doing a show called upNextra on our Patreon. So we record kind of Thursdays after the fact, and sometimes have a bit more of discussion of kind of comparing the two shows. And even though we're your NXT guys, a lot of the time we prefer AEW. I think we're pretty I don't think we have a particular brand, and we're pretty unbiased. We say it how we see, and it's very back and forth between the two for me. I think AEW's the hotter product right now, but then you've had shows like Halloween Havoc just the other week, where I think NXT blew AEW out the water.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's like one of my favorite shows of the year this year. But then AEW comes out with pay-per-views like tonight. Obviously, there's some hits and misses that we'll get into, but AEW is like still in its like first year, so it's super entertaining. As a wrestling fan, I love using Twitter, and I lurk Squared Circle on Reddit and all that stuff. And I see a lot of people just instantly like love to just shit on AEW, but like, why wouldn't you just watch it and give it like a chance? I find it really entertaining. And like you mentioned, we do a show upNXT on Thursdays talking about Dynamite. We are super fair because there's times when we just go scratch our heads, like some of the stuff in the pay-per-view tonight, which sometimes it's not so good as well. Yes. I guess you could say, but it's fun.
So I have no idea what your opinions are because I wasn't a part of the chat room. I wasn't part of the watch along. So I'm actually really quite excited, especially if you and I might disagree on something. So before we get right into this review itself, what was your excitement level heading into the show?
For me, pretty high. I think All Out was kind of disappointing, but then since then, they've built all these feuds really well. And what I found interesting is the match that maybe I would have been most hyped about. Some might have said a dream match, which is the tag team match. I felt they kind of messed it up with the build. Whereas something like Kingston and Moxley, which we've already seen once, they built it up so much that I was so excited. So the majority of the card I was really hyped for. And yeah, definitely the most excited I've been for a pay-per-view for a while.
Yeah, definitely the obvious Young Bucks FTR match. But like, as NXT people, I've been following the Revival, and they once said that the day the Young Bucks and FTR face off, that the world would rejoice. I'm kind of rejoicing for another reason, but hey, I'll take it. Today was a good day.
And I'm sure you'll have plenty more to say about that on up next week or on the Patreon show.
I got a bottle of bubbly ready for after this show. Wait, don't worry, you're invited in the backyard.
Gotcha. It's the after stream.
Sure. Yeah, Zoom after dark.
Private
you don't
stream.
Even know.
So we have a lot to get to. So let's dig right into the show. It's AEW Full Gear from Daly's Place. Did you guys happen to catch the buy-in?
We did actually. Yeah,
we did. Yeah, I had to check out AK.
Yeah, so we have Excalibur and Tony Schiavone doing the commentary here, and we start off the buy-in only a half hour here from 7:30 onwards with MJF backstage. He says tonight is the most important match of his life against Chris Jericho, and this includes his match against Jon Moxley, because he says if he had the Inner Circle for that match, Moxley wouldn't have won. So he says when he joins the Inner Circle after beating Jericho tonight, he's going to be able to win all the gold he wants. The interviewer, Alex, asks Wardlow a question, but MJF takes the mic away from him and doesn't let him speak. MJF says he doesn't care if others in the Inner Circle don't want him in. He is better than you. So he's going to have his way. We get into the only match we've had advertised on the buy-in, and that is the NWA Women's Championship match between Serena Deeb and Allysin Kay. Newly free agent Allysin Kay, of course, formerly of the NWA. Tony Schiavone says that these two had tagged and trained together in the past. We get some pretty good chain wrestling to start between the two. Deeb works over Kay's leg into an Indian Deathlock pin, and then a first attempt at her finish, the Serenity Lock. They start unleashing some stiff strikes to one another, some hard slaps, some chops, some aggressive ground and pounding. Deeb applies an octopus stretch, but Kay overpowers that into a choke bomb for two. Kay hits the AK-47, which is kind of like Lashley's finish, you know, the partial like Stormbreaker.
It's like a Deeb Dominator, but then you flip. It's like a flipping cutter, essentially, kind of. It's a cool move. Yeah, I was happy to see it.
Deeb rolls out of the ring and back in. Deeb again targets Kay's leg, hits this like neutralizer type of move. Kay gets her foot on the ropes. Deeb drags her to the center of the ring and then applies the Serenity Lock, which is for WCW fans, Conan's Tequila Sunrise. Gets the tap out at 10:24, according to our own John Pollock stopwatch. And, we thank John. We thank John for all the match times.
Absolutely.
Later today.
Shout out John Pollock.
Shout out John Pollock. His report is up at postwrestling.com if people wanted to get his thoughts on tonight's show. But what did you guys think of the match?
I really enjoyed it. I think it was in the right position being on the pre-show. I thought it was a solid wrestling match, but not enough, no build really, and not kind of flashy enough to necessarily be on the main show. But I thought both worked really well. I'm so impressed every time I watch Serena Deeb. I think she's so fluid and she just really knows what she's doing. And Allysin Kay as well has been someone who's obviously been on NWA and has got a well-known name on the independent scene, so it was cool to see her on a bigger stage. I thought both worked together really well, but wasn't anything that's going to get you particularly emotionally invested into it.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I was actually, like I mentioned, I was interested in seeing Allysin Kay. I've watched her quite a bit in, like, the independent scene in Toronto for quite a long time. I've seen her live a bunch. And I always wondered, like, hey, I think she could kind of go further. And you know what? She's actually changed her appearance a little bit, her gear and stuff. I had my pinkies up. This was just okay, but I like the fact that they bring in the NWA women's title and stuff. But it's just, why is the NWA women's title match and storylines better than the AEW women's title matches and storylines? It's just, it's all weird and backwards. Maybe I just have one title and not this crossover, which I do think is cool. So it's like I'm contradicting myself, but this was cool, but it was definitely like buy-in or Dynamite type match for me.
It seems to be one of the talking points coming out of this in the quick, like, kind of like Twitter scrolling that I've seen is like people saying why the NWA women's title matches are better, or at least the story or the characters seem to be better than the AEW. And I mean, it's definitely a question, but at the same time, this show is definitely better for having, I think, this match and having Serena Deeb in an elevated role right now. To me, I was looking at this match to see Allysin Kay essentially have a tryout, and whether or not coming out of this there would be that demand for her to, if this performance was going to be impressive enough for people to want to demand to see more of her. Like you guys, I thought it was like a pretty average match, to be honest, but I think they both looked really promising. Like, Deeb is definitely emerging as like a really good, fiery babyface inside the ring. Kay, I thought, showed like a really good power-based offensive style that kind of makes her stand out. So, I mean, even though this wasn't like the most memorable match, I really feel like she'd be a great addition to the roster. And we didn't even get a chance to see her promo, which is one of her best traits.
I also noticed that she had like theme music and like her sick Titantron. So I'm wondering if Allysin Kay is there to stay. Hey, that rhymed.
I think any addition to the women's roster would help, though.
Yeah, honestly, any fresh faces to that division right now, it's like really bad. It feels like it's bare bones watching, and we'll go into the second women's match, and it doesn't get any better.
Well, speaking of fresh faces, I mean, somebody who I guess I wasn't entirely sure whether or not they'd be making another appearance in AEW return here, because as Thunder Rosa shows up and basically, targeted the Serena Deeb to regain her NWA Women's Championship. So that looks to be a follow-up program, this time perhaps taking place in AEW. So it seems Thunder Rosa at least will be still very much involved with both NWA and AEW, at least in the near future. We go up next to the red carpet special, where Eddie Kingston is with his team of Lucha Brothers, Butcher and the Blade and the Bunny, who are now known as the Fam.
The Fam?
Eddie Kingston and his fam. Yes.
What up, fam?
The interviewer, Alex, asks Bunny if Eddie has what it takes to make Moxley say I quit. And Bunny, rightfully so, says that's a really stupid question. Basically doesn't give an answer. Alex, again, meanwhile, asks the Lucha Brothers in Spanish, and they have a whole conversation in Spanish where the only thing I really understood was Penta saying Eddie Kingston is his best friend. Alex then talks to Eddie Kingston and asks him, what's more important, the AEW title or making Jon Moxley say I quit? And Eddie Kingston, just looking incredibly somber and serious, stares right into the camera, says nothing is more important than the World Championship. He says it's the greatest championship in the sport, in the only company that matters, as he continues giving this death stare through the camera. Alex then asks if Eddie Kingston is worried about somebody like Lance Archer wanting another title shot after him, and Kingston just says, I don't care. I don't care about Archer. I don't care about Pac. It's all about the championship. Moxley currently has it. That's all I care about. What do you think of this promo?
As always, Eddie Kingston's just dynamite on the mic. Loved it. I think it really puts over the title as well. Like, his actions are all based around that title, and it makes it feel like the most important thing rather than just a prop. I've loved this whole story. I think Kingston hasn't set a foot wrong, really, in the build to this match.
He's so scary. Why is Eddie Kingston so scary when he's so serious? He's so hood. I love it. I follow this guy a little bit on the indies, but like his promo game, even on this, I'm calling it Sunday Night Heat, was great. I'm already sold on this match, but he could literally just read a book, and I think it would be good. His delivery is crazy.
The intensity and conviction, like in the way he speaks, is definitely like the thing that stands out the most, to the point where like I think in total, like he's had a lot of screen time in AEW lately, but like in a short amount of time, I would say like he's managed to get me invested in his story way quicker than maybe many programs might in more amount of time. Did either of you get a chance to see the countdown? I suppose you probably
I caught bits of it. We were sort of setting up.
Oh yeah, I watched it.
You pretty much saw it, I guess, if you watched the show, because a lot of the videos that you saw leading into the matches were all from the countdown. And in particular, like the Moxley and Kingston story with some like great footage from their past, fleshing out the story of like Eddie Kingston, promising to his mother that like this would be the one thing he would, that made it all worthwhile, all of his sacrifices. And I really enjoyed all that. So it even like got into like some of the history of Eddie Kingston's friendship with Larry Sweeney, and the toll that his death had on him, and how they were kind of tying it into, say, like, Moxley abandoning guys like them. A lot of them aren't even here, and somebody like Eddie has nothing to show for it. And this is him trying to, get some, I guess, revenge for all that. It was all like really well done.
Yeah, every time I watch Eddie Kingston, and every time I'm pick and choose the main roster WWE stuff I've been watching, but like Roman Reigns' acting lately has been really good, where I just see him pulling a Rock or Cena and going into movies, and I kind of see that when I see Eddie Kingston. Like he could be like a villain on a TV show or something. Like he's actually, I mean, he is a villain on a TV show, but going into acting is definitely something he could go, or just being mouthpieces down the line for people obviously will work for him.
Well, the thing is, I don't even say it's good acting. It's just believable. You believe
so
this is, you don't feel this guy is ever handed a script. You feel like he's just given a mic and let him go with it. It feels so natural, and which is really hard, because so many wrestlers are like, okay, like that was a good promo, they delivered that well. Eddie Kingston's beyond that. You just believe he's this person going for this title.
We go right into the pay-per-view now with our announcers, Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, Excalibur, and Don Callis. Special guest commentator for this particular match. Don Callis appears. He says that he's with Impact, but being a longtime friend of Kenny Omega, and I guess a self-professed Kenny Omega expert, he was specifically asked to be here to commentate this match. And our first match is the World Title Eliminator Final between Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. Justin Roberts, of course, reads all of Kenny's new accolades for this particular entrance. He's won several tournaments, including the IWGP US title tournament. He's got a better record and more years of experience than his opponent tonight, Hangman Page, who lives near but is not from North Carolina. The match starts. Kenny offers a handshake, but Page refuses. Excalibur acknowledges that this is the second time that these two have fought, the first time being in New Japan's Wrestling Dontaku 2018 show, which Callis called. What did you guys think of Callis on commentary?
Oh, yeah, he's great.
I love Don Callis, and I think I think back to that G1 and that run Kenny had in New Japan, where Callis was always on commentary. It was such a great pick for this match, and just so good for this Kenny character that's just kicking back into gear. Oh, you want that Kenny back? Okay, well, I'm even going to bring the commentator who called all those matches. It's such a nice little touch. Don Callis
was like, hey, Kenny, you can borrow my house, but you got to let me be on commentary for your match at the pay-per-view. So I guess that's what happened. But he's such a great voice, yeah.
I really enjoyed him too. Like, I think as a way to, I think the current AEW team is really good, but I think Callis, like especially when it comes to a Kenny Omega match, offers like that little bit of like personal touch and expertise that like the others can't offer, and certainly like him playing with Excalibur with the knowledge that both of them have of like his New Japan career, I definitely think added to this match. So early on, Kenny takes control. He's going for "You Can't Escape," but in after doing like the somersault with the Samoan the fireman's carry, he loses his balance and actually slips. He takes a moment to sell his leg here before completing a moonsault. Did you guys think that this was intentional?
No, I think it was covering up quick. I think he just
Great
missed
job
the
at
move
it.
and then was like, "Oh, how about I just sell my knee?" Which is great. That's how you should be.
That move is so hard to do. He's definitely like slipped up before, but he made it seem so flawless that it was it very well could have been, because it looked like he just went straight to the leg.
It was like it's always really tough for me to tell because like Trent earlier this week like did a spot in that Miro match where he I thought did an intentional slip up on the ropes in order
Yeah.
to lead to the finish. And it wouldn't really surprise me in these days if like somebody like Kenny in AEW itself was like playing with the idea of intentional botches in order to help you tell a story. The leg didn't exactly play too much into the story of this match, but Kenny did continue to sell it and favor it in portions. So it just makes me wonder. Kenny lands the Terminator dive onto the floor, but again, he sells the knee as he's getting up. Back in the ring, Omega attempts his first one-winged angel, but Page escapes and attempts his own. Page goes for the buckshot lariat, but Kenny rushes him with a V-trigger to stop that. We have an awesome sequence between the two involving discus elbows, snapdragons. It finally ends with the Deadeye by Page for 2. Kenny avoids the buckshot lariat again with a pin attempt. Page sits down on it for a very close 2 count. And then Kenny hits the V trigger into the ropes. Page attempts the buckshot again. Kenny avoids it. He hits the V trigger, hits the V trigger again, and then he puts Page up into the one-winged angel. Page tries to escape by keeping his head away from Kenny's grip, but Kenny eventually grabs it, finishes the move, winning the tournament, getting the next world title shot at 16 minutes 26 seconds. What do you think of the match?
I absolutely loved this. I thought this lived up to the hype for me. This was the match I was most looking forward to, and for it to kick off the show, I almost wasn't quite ready for it. I thought they both worked super hard. Some of those chops there was one early on, Hangman just chops Kenny right in the throat and looked so painful. But the finish is what I like the most.
Yeah.
That finish, the one-winged angels being protected so well that once it's hit, there's no kicking out. You don't even suspect a kick out. But that's why I loved Hangman just struggling on top and moving his head away with Kenny clawing away. That when he eventually got him and he drops him, that's it.
It's over when
Yeah.
As a fan, like the story, no one's kicked out of this move, and Hangman, as much as I love him, he ain't kicking out of it. And the fact that he knew how to get out of the move,
He was
so
trying.
smart.
There were so many people dead. As soon as
Yeah.
they're on the shoulders, they're like, okay, I'm
looked
going to
great.
take this match, where he was struggling for all his might to not get hit by it. But I thought this was a great opener, and also left room for more. If they want to have a bigger match for a title in a year or so, there's definitely more to this.
I want a sequel. This was the match I was looking most to. This is like the tag team run they had were great. I think Hangman is on his way to be a huge star in wrestling, if he's not already. And obviously Kenny Omega is great. But yeah, I feel like one day we're going to see this, not even once more, but a few more. They referenced that they fought once before in New Japan, like 2 years ago or something like that. And it's like, yeah, now their characters keep changing and evolving and going to the next level in this company. I thought this was so good. This was so great. And where does it leave Hangman? You're like, feel sorry for him because he's like the sad, depressed millennial drinker cowboy, and then Kenny's just being a dick again, and like he won. But this was great. Was this supposed to open? Because people were saying that they mentioned that MJF and Jericho were opening, and then they started the show with this. I mean, they had to go up against Joe Biden's speech, so I don't know if that was an audible.
I wasn't aware about all that. I mean, I thought it was a really good opener, though. Like MJF Jericho, I suppose, could have also fit the role, but like I loved this one as an opener because it hit the right level of satisfying without completely exhausting you from wanting to see any of the other matches on the show. It was like, I don't think this was necessarily the best match that these two could possibly have. Like, let's say if it was like Wrestle Kingdom main event or something, or like,
Yeah.
in the main event, these two going 30 minutes would be that much better. But at a 16-minute match, like, this was incredibly satisfying as, an early first chapter, second chapter, of their long-term story. The story here was that these are two tag team partners who knew each other's counters to their finishes, and they like did that really well. Like a number of like buckshot lariat counters, a number of like, V trigger counters. Like it was all so athletic, so well timed. And, for me, it was just like really refreshing to see a big pay-per-view level Kenny Omega singles match again. They've still like managed to make these like feel pretty special, and especially putting him in a tag team situation. Like they've kept these big Kenny matches like still like pay-per-view worthy in my opinion. So
They've made it special. They made it special because they use Cinderella as their promo video. I was hyped from the beginning, from the get-go. I've been bumping that track all week. David cried when we watched it on Wednesday.
Did you really cry?
It was emotional. I've had a bad couple of weeks, but yeah.
You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Like throughout this entire story, I mean, I had Bruce Lord on this past week and asked him about this, but like, do you feel like Kenny is... See, tonight I think answered a lot of questions, but like going into the pay-per-view, did you feel like Kenny was like actually turning heel, or was it all just a way to grant him a babyface edge like the Bucks had?
Oh yeah, this turn he's got going on is so interesting. I find his character recently, the one where he came out with the cleaners the first time with the accolades in the beginning from Justin Roberts, it's so meta and I love it. Don Callis was on commentary and he didn't say the famous line, God's gift to wrestling, Kenny Omega. And that's how I feel when I watch this guy. He's so fun. He's so ridiculous. And the meta character is so interesting. And this is like the slow heel turn. I didn't feel like it went full gear.
As far as I'm concerned, he's already turned. He's a heel in my eyes.
He's full blown heel.
He's like, it's more subtle, but yeah, he's being a dick.
Subtle.
There's nothing likable about his character apart from his wrestling's good. He's not a likable character at all. As far as I'm concerned, he's full-blown heel.
I like this. Yeah, I like it wherever it is.
So you think what we saw later today with Kenny celebrating with the Bucks, you think that was just maybe his, maybe just a brief stop before he fully turns, or just like him being disingenuous?
Well, the Bucks have been heels as well. In
the Bucks have been some dicks
they've
too.
Been dicks as well. Hangman is the babyface of the Elite for me. From, as I said, the Bucks have been unlikable. Kenny's been unlikable. I think there's the part of you as a fan that you just love the Elite and love them as a group, but they're still together. But yeah, they're all going in very different directions.
I like the subtle turns. I like these subtle things that AEW does that really well, where you can kind of guess where they're going. It's good.
See, but there's subtle, and then there's maybe confusing.
Yes. I think the Bucks are
an
confusing.
area where, yeah, and I think that line is different for everybody. I know I've expressed my opinion on our shows, but I know there are a lot of defenders who really enjoy this level of storytelling. I in the end, is it intriguing enough for you to want to keep watching to know exactly what's going on? And I think after tonight, the answer is yes.
I think yes.
For me.
To me, the Bucks were confusing because they were up against heels.
Yeah,
with a babyface feud in Kenny and Hangman, you need one to be the heel. But I think that's what's been weird with the Bucks, is they have been doing the same turn as Kenny, but they're against a heel team, and yeah, that's been messy for me.
The whole Elite will be champions, and they'll all be heels in their own company. That's, I don't know, something like that. But I like it.
Our second match of the night on the main card is John Silver from the Dark Order taking on Orange Cassidy. Dark Order and Best Friends are ringside. And certainly a tough spot for these two to follow the previous match, but these two may be working a bit more comedically, at least to start. Probably, help them in many ways. We have Cassidy doing his hands in the pocket spot early on, despite Silver yelling, "No, no, no." As Silver takes control, he pulls Cassidy's hands out of his pockets and then rips the pockets out from his pants.
What? That's how you know you're a heel.
Well, what kind of like jeans is this guy buying? I mean,
yeah.
Well, they also
cheap
still
pockets.
had pockets. Like the pockets were ripped, but he's got double layers of pockets.
double insulated pockets.
Yeah,
Yes.
double pockets.
Silver continues to dominate with some, very good power-based offense. He's short, but he's also like portrayed as like a very strong man. Like he's like Wolverine almost.
His arms are huge.
He is, yes.
He's 5'4" though. Yeah.
Cassidy continues to sell. He goes up top. Silver picks him up with a one-armed gorilla press, which is actually quite impressive. We get a bunch of near falls as Silver unleashes some quick kicks. He hits his finisher, which is called the Spin Doctor, which is like an inverted F10. Very cool looking move. Silver attempts Brody Lee's discus clothesline as Cassidy dodges, hits the orange punch, and then the beach break for the win. 9 minutes and 40 seconds.
I thought this was great. I really enjoyed this. What I loved so much is if you had two of these similar characters in WWE, there's no way they'd be allowed to put on a match like this. This completely over-delivered. It had the comedy bit. It kind of gave a bit of a breather from that opening, which had such a good build to it and was obviously a fantastic match. And then it's like after a bit of comedy, they went, all right, let's show what we can actually do, what we both have the potential to do. John Silver, who's a comedy character, from all of wrestling I've watched, would be someone that just gets beaten up. He wouldn't be allowed to wrestle. I thought this
He'd be
was
our
so
truth.
good. He'd be our truth, exactly. He'd be anyone in that 24/7 division. But he's hitting, as you said, like a one-handed press slam. His inverted F10. What did you...
It's a torture rack like bomb.
Spin Doctor.
Yeah, the Spin Doctor. The amount of rotations he got on that was crazy. And Orange Cassidy, I really enjoy as well when he kind of starts taking it seriously. I think he's fantastic. This came out of nowhere and got me so hyped for this show because it's been 2 matches so far and both really, really delivered to me.
This was fun. I didn't expect it to be this fun. Obviously, John Silver, Johnny Hungy, was jacked up on Mountain Dews to be able to do those crazy spots. But he's someone that we've seen like as enhancement talent in like NXT and Evolve and even here in AEW. And he's just taken that like character that he somehow brought out of him and just he's been super entertaining. And the fact that he's 5'4" and he's small and short, but his arms are huge and he can still one hand lift Orange Cassidy, who's obviously not a giant guy, but I didn't expect this to be as fun as it was. And again, ripping out Orange Cassidy's pockets is legit hilarious heel heat. And I think I got so mad at him that he did it. So it worked. It totally worked for me. This was fun.
I think Davey, like what you're talking about, like even like a comedy guy like a John Silver being able to go out there to have like the best possible match that this guy possibly can. I think that goes to it falls very much in line with I think like Tony Khan's philosophy, which I think this week, hearing him do a number of interviews, we had a bit more of an exposure to where he seems to really just value in-ring quality and in-ring matches, and to the point where everybody, no matter how low you are on the card, look at AEW Dark, for instance. Everybody, no matter what your rank is in the company, he values that person or those people going out there to have like 10-minute great matches. So certainly, like John Silver, this past cycle has been a breakout for him. Not only is he, of course, tremendously entertaining on being the elite, but like they managed to transition that, I think, pretty well to Dynamite. And in ring, he was quite impressive here. Great looking kicks, great looking power offense, and a very unique style, I would say, for a man of his size. Do you guys think Orange Cassidy, what's next for him? Like, has he kind of settled in sort of like a mid-tier range? Do you see him ever escalating himself, like, beyond that?
I could see him as a TNT champion one day. I think his next program is likely Miro, maybe.
Yeah,
that's
stuff.
What I see.
Or even worse,
and I see him kind of just feuding around with maybe a lot of other big guys. Maybe has he had the Lance Archer match yet? But something like that. But I do see him eventually as a TNT champion.
I feel like he's supposed to be a special attraction, but they've already kind of burned through him quickly. But like he's shown his actual wrestling in his matches, so he is a great character to have.
he's almost like too popular and too good to just be a special attraction, you know. Certainly, at the start, it was like that match with Pac felt like it was like him being saved for pay-per-views, but he ended up being so popular and doing so well in TV. And I think you see the results of like the Chris Jericho feud, like that working so well. I think like we're seeing him now make a very successful transition to being more of a standard regular character. And you see a match like this, you compare it even to the Pac match, you can see the evolution and the tweaking of his in-ring style where he now kind of works a bit more, I would say almost like a traditional cruiserweight babyface in a match like this, a whole lot less of the gimmick, but it keeps him from just being a novelty act. So
I think he's got the balance really well, to be honest. And I see his kind of lazy, gimmicky stuff more as almost mind games with the opponent and a spot he uses rather than this is this character. It's working for me.
They've turned like a cartoonish gimmick into something that could fit into like sort of the real world of AEW, or at least as real as possible.
His Titantron video is great, by the way. It's like oranges and flowers, and it's fantastic.
Our next match is for the TNT title between the champion Cody and Darby Allin. And Darby Allin makes quite the entrance here. He arrives sitting on the hood of his old Toyota Camry sedan with the words "Face of TNT" painted on it. This is the same car that ran over the fake Cody that we saw on Wednesday. He takes his skateboard and smashes the windshield with his poor friend still sitting inside.
I felt so sorry for his friend. His friend's driving him to work, and then he's smashing up his car. It's rude.
Is it the same guy he hit with the car?
I think so.
Jeez. And also, like, you're about to have a match. What if this glass flies up at you in your eye or something? Very unsafe, this Darby Allin.
And how are you going to get home? You busted your own car.
Get a ride with Don Callis and Kenny.
Not to be outdone, Cody is accompanied for his entrance by the entire Nightmare family.
All 17 of them.
He's made quite the few additions lately, because not just the what is it, Natural Nightmares, not just Brandy, but now including the Gun Club of Billy Gunn and Austin Gunn, and even Lee Johnson. So brand new members, brand new recruits into the Nightmare family here.
It's looking like a damn football team out there with no Pharaoh though, but there's a lot of people.
Hey, they wouldn't be able to dine together in Ontario.
Yeah,
right
there's like rules against this.
They're breaking the 6+ rule.
Yeah, like they can't be sitting together. There's literally 11 people in this Nightmare family, and if you're counting like, I don't know, Red Velvet, does she count technically? She's been being managed by Brandy. There's so many of these people. I don't understand. But I kind of like it because he's what is he supposed to be?
I don't know if Cody's being ironic, if he's building a turn, or he's just this into himself. But
it's got to be a turn.
Either way, I don't care. I love it.
You compare him to Caesar a lot, that's what
he's
I
Julius
see.
Caesar.
Yeah, like eventually he's got to like turn here.
They have to kill him. Like that's Caesar.
Well, Austin Gunn's gonna kill Cody.
Yeah, Mark Anthony right there. Yeah.
Our first significant moment in the match comes with Justin Roberts' introduction, as he says, introducing Cody Rhodes.
What?
Big reaction from the crowd for the return of Cody's last name, despite him saying on a conference call that he wasn't going to be using it in a wrestling context. I mean, he did debut it here, or re-debut it here.
So anything he says in these conference calls taken with a grain of salt. Like, I'll never challenge for the title again in the same conference call. Just saying. Cody couldn't challenge for it, but maybe Cody Rhodes could.
That's a great
point. He's Caesar.
There's a lot of posturing between the two going on at the start. We have a long stare down. Darby applies a hammerlock, but Cody, definitely is playing heel in this match. He casually trips him in a cocky way, then extends his hand to help lift him up. Darby sees it as a sign of insult, refuses, and instead kips up. They do another standing switch, and this time Darby slaps Cody in the back of the head. Cody retreats, and Arn says, "Don't let him pull that shit." So Cody is kind of being portrayed as like the cocky one, not taking Darby as seriously. Darby gets another quick La Magistral and forces Cody to retreat again. Cody comes back in, applies Darby Allin in a hammerlock, and then just launches him over the top rope and onto the ramp back first. And Darby continues to sell that left arm throughout the match. Darby goes for a backslide, but can't finish it because of that bad arm. So Darby keeps attempting. He attempts a springboard arm drag, but Cody again stops it, targeting the arm with a double arm bar. Cody at this point starts doing push-ups as the crowd boos, and Arn yells at him to stop playing around. Darby avoids the crossroads, jumps off the middle turnbuckle, and pulls off the middle turnbuckle pad, sends Cody's head into it for 2. They fight on top of the turnbuckle. Cody hits an avalanche crossroads, and Darby is pretty much out at this point, but his arm is under the bottom rope, so he manages to escape. Darby is sent to the floor. Arn yells Darby to do what's best for him and stay down, but Darby won't quit. Cody is getting frustrated, and he takes his weight training belt. Darby uses the weight training belt to trip Cody instead. Darby catches the disaster kick, applies the last supper, then a stunner, and then the coffin drop for 2. They roll through a number of near fall attempts until finally Darby Allin pins Cody, becoming the new TNT World Champion at 16 minutes and 50 seconds.
I really, really enjoyed this. I find Cody just fascinating. We already mentioned his entrance, but even in wrestling, he's so versatile where he can quickly adopt the role of the heel for this match. But it feels more sports-based than any other competitor in wrestling, in North American wrestling for me, because he's playing the heel because he's just really good at what he does and really wants to win. I think Darby, I'm not into all the black and white videos of him jumping off bridges and rolling down half pikes in a body bag. It doesn't do it to me. It doesn't make him feel cool or anything. But as soon as the match starts, he's such a great baby face, but has such a relentless energy and aggression to him, where even the roll-up finish worked as well. With Arn kind of adopting, he is the heel manager as well, and just yelling for Cody to pay attention, and him kind of being the more of the heel for Darby than Cody really worked as well. I just thoroughly enjoyed this match, and again, this show was really hitting it with me.
I know a lot of people don't really like Cody. We do our watch-alongs, obviously, when we watch pay-per-views recently, and I noticed that tonight a lot of our people in the chat were like, hey, Cody sucks. And I was like, in our watch along, trying to defend him, because I get this real old school vibe from Cody Rhodes. It's like, in Cody's matches, he comes up with a creative spot that you've never seen him do. We've seen him pin guys with the figure 4. That was kind of out there. The crossroads off the top, that was
incredible.
In the middle of the match, and it sends Darby all the way across the ring. I thought that was a pretty creative thing. He's really smart. It's like he watches every wrestling that's ever been out there, and he soaks it in, and then he pulls out little things in his matches. So I argue that Cody takes the old school approach, but adds it in a nice modern way. So I can't knock Cody's in-ring work.
He reminds me, you know how Kota in the G1 this year, every match he focused it on the style of his opponent rather than trying to work his match. I get similar feelings with Cody. Even doing crazy stuff like the coffin drop with Darby on his back isn't something Cody would normally do, but he's trying to match Darby's style, and I really like that.
I like Darby as well. I get, obviously, Jeff Hardy vibes from Darby Allin, but I agree with you, because I love Tony Hawk, I love Steve-O, but the stuff with them just didn't click for me. I was like, this isn't working. So for me, I just need him to kind of be this guy he is tonight. Hey, I fought to be here, and I want to be here. And the stuff with the face of TNT is whatever. But now he is the face of TNT, so much that TNT's Twitter changed their handle to "Our champion is Darby Allin." So I kind of feel happy. I think it makes it fresh that he won, because if he lost, then he's kind of a geek. So he needed to win this. I thought this delivered for me. And the coffin drop is a sick ass wrestling move, if you ask me.
See, I was honestly surprised that they actually did the title switch here, because I think, what we've seen, at least with maybe an influence from, maybe I'm just influenced from New Japan Pro Wrestling's booking, but you see something like an Okada versus Sonata feud, and how Sonata, I guess until, did he beat him recently?
He beat him in the G1 year? Last year. Sonata?
Did he beat him last year?
It was in 29 minutes. Wasn't it? It was right before the count. the time
Right.
out,
Okay.
I
So I
believe.
mean, I thought we were gonna get like a similar type of like long-term story where like it would take years for Allen to finally beat Cody. So I was ready for Cody to just like have Allen be very close again, but just not beat him. But I mean, seeing this executed, I thought it was a pretty it felt like a good time to execute. Maybe what you said, Braden, of like them having Allen failed yet again would be one time too many. And I think they crafted like a pretty good match out of Cody being this cocky dude and Darby refusing to quit. So, coming out of this, it'll be interesting because like one of the best things about Cody being TNT champion is the fact that he is so versatile. He can have a hardcore match with an Eddie Kingston, or he can have, a standard match with really anybody. Can Darby Allin be that same type of versatile guy, or will they have to book him slightly differently? How will he react as in terms of promos? I thought on the Countdown show, like he sounded really good to me.
Oh, he sounded way better, didn't he, in that video? Yeah, why doesn't he talk more
Mhm.
like that? He was talking about why he wears face paint because he had a car crash with his uncle or something. It was really, really deep. Did you also notice that Darby Allin did a stinger splash in this match? There's the subtle drops, way that the stinger is coming. He's coming.
You think Sting is coming to like what manage Darby Allin? Sting is his dad. How about that?
Yo, that you're not. That could be that could be a thing.
I have never heard Braden speak so much about Sting as I have this week. I don't know what he read, what fake
No, I
news
didn't
he
read
read
anything.
online.
I didn't
but
read
he's
anything.
been convinced all week that Sting's coming back.
I don't
and he
even-
doesn't even like Sting. I don't get it.
I don't
Yeah,
not
why?
like Sting. Just don't like Sting. I just feel like it would be, I don't know, a nice little. He did do the stinger splash. Just saying. And they
I think
shot-
I think they
shot him-
should. The reveal should be like Darby Allin sitting in the rafters, and then the camera keeps planning up, and there's Sting like standing in the
just like
rafters.
he sits. Darby sits just like Sting, in
sat
the
there in a
rafters.
Sting mask.
Yeah, in a Darby mask, and he
In a
takes it
Darby
up.
mask,
I just feel like there could be something there, dressed like the Crow or something. Darby, I don't know.
It's definitely a Sting vibe that they've got with Darby Allin right now.
The guy driving Darby's car had more of like a Joker Darby face paint, so it could have been Joker Sting. We don't know. We don't know.
They're all coming in. I think Surfer Sting really should make a comeback and be Darby's dad.
Wow.
Surfer Darby Allin.
Surfer Darby Allin. I mean, he's got blonde hair. Take
He's got
away
the skateboard already.
Yeah, if you take away the black tights and just leave the black Daisy Dukes, I mean, they could look like surfer shorts. So
Right.
we're on to something, Way.
We got to move on as much as I love fantasizing here. So Cody, there's no drama as Cody, he's not reluctant. He's not demanding a lawsuit in order to look at the finish here. He's not disputing this outcome at all. Cody hands Darby Allin the title as the fans chant, "You deserve it." At this point, Taz shows up with team, or Taz alone shows up. He says, "This is enough." He's gonna vomit. There's too much emotions, too much hugging, too many tears. He continues to taunt both Darby Allin and Cody as Brian Cage and Ricky Starks come in to attack him from behind. Interesting moment here between Ricky Starks and Brian Cage as they each go to grab the TNT title, and they almost have a brief tug of war to see who can actually carry it. Taz stands between them, dissolves whatever tension that there might be between the two. So that was like a nice little tease between those two. And then Cage drags Darby to the outside, throws him through one of the kind of like Full Gear set pieces that they have.
Yeah.
And the light, yeah. And then they drag Darby to go to his beat up Camry. And they're about to crush Darby Allin's hand in the car door. But Will Hobbs comes in to send them away and possibly drive them home.
Well, their car's wrecked. You can't see through it unless you do with the Pineapple Express kicking out the windshield. But I thought for a second they were putting Darby on or in the car and then just putting the car in reverse and just letting the car like drive off. So I was a little let down, to be honest. Like Darby wants to do some crazy. Yeah, if Darby
That would
said
be insane.
Yeah, Darby does all this weird shit that isn't really. Look, I grew up watching every part of Jackass ever. Darby really hasn't done anything except that one time he jumped out of that window through the pool, which was just dumb. Like, stupid.
I
But
I,
this
un-
would have
I
been great.
understand like the Daredevil like abilities of like Darby Allin, but like a stunt like that, unleashing like a car with no driver inside, would be a hazard to everybody around like that building. You know,
Oh,
how
it'd
would
be
they
great
control
though.
that?
Oh, it'd be great. There's
It'd be-
ways. There's way they can film Elite Deletion. They can.
I didn't
Wait.
think this was really needed on the show for me. I love Taz. I love his promos. I really like Ricky Starks and Brian Cage. I find quite entertaining in the ring as well. I've got nothing against them, but Taz cut that promo on Wednesday saying that they'll make their presence felt, and they were a bit polite. Like, they waited to the end of the match. They waited for the title to change and then attacked him, and it just felt... It felt an angle I didn't feel we needed tonight, and especially a show that was very long. I think this could have been on the chopping floor.
Anytime I get to see Ricky Starks, though, is a plus, because dude has the greatest wardrobe in wrestling. The guy is always looking fresh, and he sounds amazing. He's been a character that's totally grown on me. The first time I saw him, I groaned, and now I'm like, oh man, you're someone I want to see. But Taz also said that, can someone get him a plastic bag because he wants to vomit? Wouldn't you want like a plastic bag? Doesn't seem like, what if it has hole? I didn't think that was the right one.
I think you want a paper bag with like plastic lining. I think that's what they have.
I think that's what he meant. He just was trying to attack.
You two are going on tangents today.
Dasha is in the back with the natural nightmares as QT Marshall cuts a promo on Allie. She says she chose the Nightmare family to infiltrate because they're the most prolific family in AEW, which means they get the most TV time. He tells the Blade to get his home life in check. Dustin says that there are many successful women to come through their sport, but Allie is not one of them. And Dustin says that he has asked Tony Khan for their match against Butcher and the Blade on Wednesday to now be a bunkhouse match. So, bunkhouse match coming on Wednesday. I mean, certainly going back to the nostalgia well of NWA and Crockett, and we'll see how this does. It's something. It adds a bit.
What
Are
is
you
this?
guys excited?
I'm unfamiliar with a bunkhouse match.
It's a bunkhouse match. You don't know a bunkhouse match? No, I don't either.
I really think it's just another.
Naughty.
I really think it's just another word for hardcore match. Essentially,
I'm young. I don't know what that is.
I've never been inside a bunkhouse before.
Let's go.
It sounds interesting. Okay. Yeah. Have you? Yeah.
I'm looking it up. Okay.
Chat room, bunkhouse, everybody.
match.
Next month, patreon.com/upNXT. Best match
cover.
ever, bunkhouse match.
Okay,
Right, we're doing
perfect.
Yes.
it. It's all done.
For
It's
the
all Dusty Roads. Okay.
For the AEW Women's title, we have Hikaru Shida taking on Nyla Rose. Shida has held the title since May of this year, and winning it from Nyla Rose at the time. So Nyla Rose is wearing some Mega Man inspired gear, I believe. So
Okay, is that what you got out? We also thought that she was dressed like Mega Man.
what else could it be?
Well, someone said the Tick. Didn't quite think it was that.
No,
But definitely,
I think Mega Man.
it was definitely. She had eight.
Definitely
there was
more Mega
8-bit.
Man.
Yeah, there was 8-bit letters, and yeah, it definitely was that.
That's what I took it to be, like Mega Man colors, So anyway, right at the bell, she just swarms with a barrage of strikes, and then they spill to the floor as Vicky Guerrero attacks Shida's knee with a kendo stick. Rose capitalizes, wrenching Shida's knee into the structure of the ring and the post, applying a single leg crab. Shida fights back and manages to hit a vertical suplex onto Rose, getting a 2 count. Rose blocks the Tamashi, which is Shida's running knee finish. Shida goes for another vertical suplex, but Rose just grabs onto Shida's knee to escape. Good selling from Shida here. I thought of that knee, struggling to fight back on that injury. She climbs up top and then hits a missile dropkick to Rose on the ramp, and then another back in the ring for 2. Rose then lands a powerbomb, lifts her up at 2 because she refuses to cover her off of the powerbomb. Instead, she bows, gives her the finger, and then delivers again the Tamashi that she used this past week on Dynamite. Shida, though, kicks out of it at 1. Shida gets Rose up top, hits the Falcon Arrow from the top rope, but before covering for 3, we see Shida now refusing to cover Rose and lifts her up at 2. Shida, for the first time, I guess we've seen it on Dynamite, gives this evil grin. And then she too wants to finish the match with the Tamashi, but before she could do that, Vicky Guerrero pulls her onto the floor. Vicky is about to use the kendo stick, but Aubrey grabs it. Sheeta then throws Rose into Vicky, which takes Vicky out. Back in the ring, Sheeta hits a partial Falcon Arrow. And I say partial because I don't think she really got all of it, as Michael Cole says. Rose kicks out at 2, and then the Tamashi from Sheeta. But Rose kicks out again. Did these, like, kickouts at the end kind of look odd to you?
Oh, yeah. We thought someone was out.
We were wondering if Nyla was a bit rocked because it seemed... Obviously, there was the deliberate lift of the arm from
Dean
Sheeta,
Malenko, yeah.
But she seemed to subtly be, like, shoving her to kick out from these.
Weird.
So I was wondering if Nyla had been knocked a little loopy at one point.
Sheeta then hits another Tamashi to the back before hitting repeated knee strikes to Rose's head, covering her for the pinfall at 14-12. Yeah, I agree. I thought the finishes here, to me, felt a little bit weird. It almost felt like they were improvising at the end because something might not have gone so well. But overall, what did you guys think of the match?
Yeah, I know the name of the move that you keep saying is Tamashi. So I had to look it up, and it means soul or spirit. And I don't think this match had that. That's what I have to say about it.
Unfortunately, this for me was DOA. It felt very thrown together. We've seen it a bunch, but just didn't have the heat of the previous feud when they last did the match. It also came off the back of 3 really, really good matches, and I thought it went far too long. I thought this needed to be cut down. There were some sloppy moments in there. Really, if you've got Sheeta going over, a Falcon Arrow to someone the size of Nyla Rose off the top should be the finish. And the match really fell apart after that point. You had Vicky trying to... Oh, sorry, I've got a new name for Vicky Guerrero. Vic Togo.
Vic Togo, yeah, that's good.
Very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, even when Vicky kind of swiped the leg, she missed it, and then it just all fell apart at the end. And I felt bad because I kind of wasn't into it before it even started, and then it really didn't deliver for me, unfortunately.
Cody was asked about, the lack of build for this program on that conference call by Kristen Ashley. And, his defense was that he feels like the match should speak for itself. He was kind of chalking this one up as being more sports-like presentation. And I just felt that was a bit of a non-answer because I don't know what happened here. It was brought up on our previous podcast about maybe Abaddon was supposed to fit into something and she got injured, and maybe they had to just resort to Nyla Rose again. But I definitely think the lack of story here really hurt the interest in this match. As a match itself, I actually enjoyed it probably more than the two of you did. And that, for me, is mainly just because I think Nyla Rose gets the best out of these AEW baby faces. They allow, Riho or Sheeta to tell, really strong underdog stories that you don't really need that much story for, thankfully. It's just small person versus big person, and you can always get behind, somebody like Sheeta, who I thought selling of her knee was really good in this match throughout. But unfortunately, finish, for some reason, didn't really come together.
Yeah, and now by the looks of it, she's turning face after being such a good heel, as you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
where's
post-match...
where's Statlander? Get Statlander
She's
back.
still injured.
She's supposed to be back.
Yeah,
I mean, at least she's back on BTE.
That's the savior of the women's division.
Well, post-match, Vicky starts to have a tantrum. She's yelling at Nyla Rose, slaps her, and Nyla just takes it as they both walk to the back separately. So not a breakup, but certainly the beginning of a Nyla Rose face turn. And at this point, I mean, Rose has been a heel, and very, I would say, effective heel. But how many more opponents does she have as a heel? I suppose. So we'll see what they can do. For the tag titles, it is the Young Bucks taking on FTR. FTR come out with ring jackets that read "Great GTTOAT," good totes. The greatest tag team of all time. And I don't know if you've also noticed, but it says Grand Slam on the top with 4 different icons.
Yes.
Oh,
I suppose for Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and now AEW. So is that the unofficial tag team Grand Slam now?
Yeah, it is.
I think so. That's how it seems.
It looked like that logo of a sports team, what, the Steelers or something like that. The stars over it, but
it's also for soccer. If you win a World Cup, you get a star on your jersey.
I loved commentary trying to figure out what was written on their jacket. That was fun.
So Mac Jackson, of course, is coming in with that knee/ankle injury, and we start the match very good back and forth early on with Matt lightly hobbling on that ankle. Dax is attempting to chop Matt, but instead he hits the ring post, and the Bucks now begin aggressively working over his hand. So throughout the match, you have two competing injuries between Matt Jackson's ankle and Dax Harwood's hand. Matt eventually goes for a moonsault that misses and lands on that ankle. So now FTR takes control of it. Doc Samson goes over to Dax goes over to Doc Samson's table to get his hand taped mid-match. Excalibur even suggests that he may have had a splint put in it. Is that allowed mid-competition, putting a splint into a match?
Whoa,
he didn't, by the way, but
I didn't notice that, but he was bleeding. Like the hand looked like it was bleeding. We were joking that he just maybe dipped his hand in some color underneath the ring, but like throughout the match, he got it taped up and it was leaking out through his hand. So good job on his hand. I guess he took the bullet on that one. I guess I don't know.
Like the fake blood that they've used now in AEW, it's kind of hard to tell like when they do it. I mean, sometimes you can tell by the shade of the blood, like when we saw with Sammy Guevara later, like that definitely looked like fake blood, but they definitely mix it with real blood as well, so it's kind of hard to tell by the end.
For me, this I didn't know I couldn't work out if he legit just hurt his hand or whether this was a planned spot, because it played so much into the match, and it's such an interesting kind of injury that you never really see in wrestling. But then, knowing how kind of smart these guys are, I kind of thought, I think this is a deliberately planned hand injury, which was fantastic.
Well, with all the spots that came after it was definitely
Think about the parking lot fight, but in that fight, Trent Beretta like blades his arm. So what stops a guy from blading his hand if he's trying to make the hand look like it's bleeding, right? So I thought this spot was...
a cut in your hand. I feel like I would take a cut in my forehead instead of my hand, man. I use my hand like for everything.
Me too, Wai. But but like this spot was great. Like legit, like it looked amazing. I think this spot really got me. Like this was still early in the match, but this definitely had my interest. Like I was like, okay, because then they started using the hand as an angle, especially when you see him getting it taped up, and we know the injury to one of the Bucks going into this. So it's like, okay, well now, you know, a leg
playing field.
Yeah, a leg for a hand, if you will. But I liked it.
Mm-hmm. So we get more leg work onto Matt from FTR, continuing to prevent Matt from tagging out. FTR then start looking for their superplex / top rope / combo, but Matt gets his knees up. Matt fights them off both single-handedly, hot tags to Nick, who goes on this really great run. Matt eventually tags back in, hits a spear for 2. Matt then tries for a buckle bomb, but his knees give out. And then this is when we start getting a lot of callbacks to previous tag team maneuvers. We start off with FTR hitting the Steiner's electric chair bulldog for 2. The Bucks then come back with the 3D, and then they hit the twist of fate with the Swanton combo.
You missed the heart attack, Wai. They also hit the heart attack. Of course, the Revival Bret Hart fans as they are, but yeah, they're hitting all these classic throwbacks. Totally cool.
Absolutely. So Dax then hits a rebound powerbomb onto Nick, but Matt catches him with a roll-up for a 2.9 count. Dax attempts to punch Matt, but re-injures that bad hand in the process. Matt then attempts to kick Dax, but re-injures his bad leg. They each try a kick and a punch at the same time with their respective bad body parts, and they both go down. FTR then signal for DIY's running knee / super kick combo just for you two.
Of course, praying hands.
You know, we see like callbacks, of course, to like, you know, great tag teams of the past, and I certainly like, but like a callback to DIY is certainly like a more recent one, but one that ties really close, of course, to the Revival.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. Matt Jackson has a sharpshooter, but Dax grabs the ropes. Nick super kicks Dax's injured hand that's grabbing onto the ropes. Both Bucks are now applying sharpshooters on either side of the ropes to members of the FTR.
Yeah, cease and assist. It's like their finishing move, and it's again another callback to that DIY thing with the grabbing. I think of like for some reason,
for the hands,
it's like a movie or something where they're like both reaching, but the DIY Revival stuff is definitely being called back yet again in this match. Great.
So Cash, the illegal man, actually taps on the outside, but Dax, the legal man, Matt, the pressure on Matt's ankle is too much for him to hold on to the sharpshooter, so he has to let go. But the Bucks now have a 2-on-1 on Dax inside the ring. Matt stomps on Dax's hand, and then goes to break his fingers.
Break your fingers.
Oh.
And then they hit the BTE trigger. But Cash Wheeler comes in last second, breaks up the count. Frustrated, Matt Jackson now grabs the steel chair. Dax realizes that they would keep the titles on a DQ, so he tells Matt to hit him. Hit me. Instead, Matt throws the chair away, sets him up for the Meltzer driver tombstone. Cash at this point drags Nick Jackson off the apron, power bombs him through the announcer's table.
Over a table.
Over a table.
Yeah.
Dax reverses the tombstone. FTR hits the Mindbreaker, which is the spike pile driver, but Matt is too close to the ropes for the cover. FTR then take Matt's boot off and expose the ankle. Cash comes off the second rope with a big stomp. Dax applies the inverted figure four onto the bad knee. Nick comes in at this point, breaks it up with a 450 slash onto Dax. Matt covers but only gets two. Cash Wheeler and Matt Jackson are both now the legal men, and Wheeler says, "Fuck you." He hits a super kick. Wheeler is looking around. It's almost as if like, yeah, is anybody seeing me do this right now? Okay, nobody's watching, so I can get away with this. Cash Wheeler decides to go for a springboard 450 splash.
Oh my God.
The one thing FTR promised they would never do, a flip. And it costs the man because Matt Jackson avoids the splash, hits a one-legged super kick using his bad knee, and then the Bucks win this epic match, finally capturing the AEW Tag Team titles. 28 minutes, 46 seconds.
Wait. The finish was not only them going for said flip, but it ends with a barefoot super kick. No boot, just a foot to the face, and the Young Bucks with the move that made them famous. It's in fact a super kick party in Jacksonville. Also, Davie, would you like to explain what you were going on in the watch-along during this match?
So we made two wild predictions for this show.
Yeah,
Braden predicted Sting would come out, and I predicted that Cash Wheeler would do a 450
Legit,
splash.
he was going off about.
Kidding me.
He was telling me the whole show that he was going to do this.
I think it was the Jericho podcast after the Revival left, and they were saying, "Look, we can do 450s and things. That's part." Like, we know how to do them. We just don't. It doesn't fit our characters, and it doesn't fit the style of tag team wrestling we want to do. But if we want to do one, we can. And if there was ever a match for one of the FTR to do a 450 splash, it's against the Young Bucks, who kind of, it's why they're all no flips, just fists. It's their kind of internet rivalry with those guys. So... And it cost them the match.
And then, I thought this finish was one of the best finishes in a long time, particularly because it did both things. Like I mentioned, it was the super kick barefoot, mind you, and then the flip, going with all the different tag team finishing moves and the story of like the injured hand and the foot. The world can rejoice because these two fought.
What I loved about this match is people in the chat room were going, like, everyone instantly loved this, and people were saying, "Oh, is this better than the Bucks, Kenny, Hangman?" And what I love about the two of them is the Bucks, Kenny, Hangman has so much kind of history and like lore within their whole story of the Elite that they'd call on in their match. Whereas this, the whole build really, for us fans, forget everything that's been on Dynamite. The whole build has been, these have been two tag teams, one in WWE and one in the rest of the world, who think they are the best and have very different visions of tag team wrestling, but both teams love and respect tag team wrestling, and that's the history they drew on for this match, with all the callbacks to all the great teams over the years. And it made it so much more enjoyable, and I was so worried going into this one because it had a lot of hype, and the FTR Hangman Omega match kind of disappointed me a bit. And then I'm going, am I just so kind of in love with that rivalry with DIY and the American Alpha match and those tag matches from quite a few years ago now, that I've put FTR on this pedestal that maybe they shouldn't be on anymore? And then this match, just sigh of relief. It really, really delivered for me. I love this so much.
Yeah, I thought this was great. I can't compare it to the Revolution tag match. I think that match is how you say, chef's kiss. This one I'm gonna have to rewatch a few times as well, maybe even later. I really liked it. And I looked on the Young Bucks Twitter. They've already got their custom. You know when a team wins, like a sports team wins their title or the Stanley Cup or whatever. They've got AEW Tag Team Champion shirts and hats, and they're rocking bubbly and with the titles backstage. So they're celebrating like the Lakers gear, like the Lakers they were wearing. The gear on both of the teams, by the way, were fire. But this is the dream match everyone wanted, and I think it delivered. I had a lot of fun watching this, and I think obviously there's room for rematches down the line, but it doesn't hurt the Revival. But it definitely, the Young Bucks in their own promotion winning the titles, yeah, it had to happen, and I'm happy it happened tonight.
I was honestly surprised, like when I was reading John's update and I saw that this thing was 28 minutes 46 seconds, because I didn't feel a second of it. I thought like the body part injuries really helped drag this thing along like at a really good pace, gave me something to focus on every single second of this match. It was all really well done in my opinion. My expectations, like most people, were through the roof for this one. This was like dream match level expectation, like years in the making, as you said. But it absolutely delivered to me. Great psychology in there, and then a great pace, and all the little Easter eggs of like these tag team moves that they're pulling from the past, including the DIY finisher. Like it was like great, and then not to even mention like the finish philosophically was like really great. You know,
yeah.
Like you guys were talking about the catchphrase "No flips, just fists" is very much based off of a team, like a style that the Young Bucks made popular. And for the guy to go against the philosophy that he's held with his tag team partner for years as part of their identity, as a way to cost them the match, I thought was absolutely brilliant. So if the conversation here is between this match or like Bucks and Kenny and Hangman as match of the year, it's hard to make that comparison because that match had a crowd,
Yeah,
so that
true.
to me still stands out to me. But for a pandemic era match like these, I don't think these two teams could have done better. Like, it was fantastic.
Cash Wheeler on Twitter just under an hour ago tweeted no flips. So you might not see him bust that 450 out. 630 though. I want to see.
Dude, it was a nice 452, wasn't it?
It was
Nice
springboard
too,
actually. Yeah, great stuff.
So after the match, Kenny Omega comes out to celebrate. He's reunited with the Elite. And then the camera in a wide shot shows that in the entrance, you see a very sad lurking, all by himself with his little whiskey, I think, Hangman Page, almost too shy to come down for the celebration.
There's, someone once said, you don't know what you got till it's gone. Well, Hangman was the one who wanted to leave the Elite, and here they're winners, and he's just kind of chilling out. But he said, doesn't matter, because he'll always have his whiskey, and he did just that. He reminded me of like the Wolverine meme where he's just with the picture and he's looking at the Elite and he's like, I was there and I am now don't have any of this. But this progresses that story, and I think the storytelling with the Hangman, Kenny, and the Bucks is some of the best stuff going. I like this. This popped for me.
I keep on going back and forth with how I feel about the feud, and I think it might be because I'm just too used to like wrestling storylines, and the fact that they're trying to do something a bit more beyond that. Like, really, this is how relationships are in real life. We don't just suddenly go, fuck that guy, I don't like him. But you start to go, I don't know if I like Barry as much as I used to. Yeah. And it's but I've known him since I was at school. I don't know. It feels more like real life, and it's ambitious, and certainly it gets a bit confusing at times. But I think it's just because it goes against the norm of what we're so used to in pro wrestling storytelling.
See, again, I go back to the argument of like, can you be too real to the point where you kind of like lose any side of narrative and maybe a clear message? Because maybe the problem I had with this is that on Wednesday, we had Page come in first, and he was the one to save the Bucks, so it gave the appearance that those two were fine. It was actually Kenny that was late. Now, this could have been an intentional reverse of that, with Kenny coming in early and then Page being late and refusing to come in.
Yeah, true. because Kenny's a dick, he wanted to show up first. He was waiting.
Kenny's won. Kenny's job's done. If
Yeah.
Kenny's match was on later in the night, he wouldn't have been there. The way his character is to me. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Well, then maybe we see, these aspects kind of fleshed out a bit on BTE, perhaps. It's something, though, I wish, like, maybe was a bit more kind of, like, I don't know, guided along for someone maybe
it's really
the
gray.
dumber of us.
It needs to be black and white,
love
and it's been super gray. Definitely, I find the stuff with the Young Bucks leading into this match. The match delivered, so I'm over the weird build that it had, because it seems they're confusing me who's I'm supposed to root for. But definitely, as the Hangman character, you kind of like sympathize with him and feel like he's got some issues, and he's emotionally unavailable.
I think I just relate to
Yeah,
him.
we all relate to Hangman. That's why he's like the best character right now. I think so. So even him, the little thing of him standing in that tunnel on the entranceway, like, I want to join them. I'm still here. I'm still showing face, so they know when they watch back, I was there. But like Kenny was there, and I didn't feel comfortable going forward. We've been in that situation in real life, like you mentioned. So yeah, the storytelling continues with Hangman and Kenny. I don't think that story's over, and it'll go on maybe for a few years, which is great.
The Cinderella was definitely playing in his head.
Oh, Cinderella's been playing. I'm going to bump it right after we finish this show. Great.
Please don't.
Yeah, he hates it already.
We go up next to the Elite Deletion. Certainly, like, in my opinion, just even the name alone was built to be the next iteration of the Final Deletion series from Broken Matt Hardy.
I hope so.
So we're brought to the Hardy compound in Cameron, North Carolina. It's dark outside. Matt Hardy is on his phone. He has a premonition that the odds aren't going to be even tonight. So he tells whoever's on the line to get here. And we should know that it's Broken Matt Hardy, who seems to have just, made a transformation off screen. He is back to being Broken Matt right now. Sammy Guevara has arrived in his Spanish God golf cart. And greeting him at the entrance is the brand new drone, Neo 1, who projects a hologram of Matt that welcomes Sammy to the Hardy compound. Neo hacks into the golf cart and disables it, which allows from out of the shadows Matt Hardy in a giant monster truck to come out, running over this golf cart. He comes off of it and says, "Now that is the squash job." The match begins, and we actually hear a bell here, along with audio commentary from the live feed. So we have Tony Schiavone, Jim Ross, and Excalibur calling, live commentators calling a deletion match. Sammy climbs the wheel of the monster truck, delivers this moonsault press for 2, and essentially the rest of it kind of becomes a Falls Count Anywhere match. Unlike previous Hardy compound matches, there's no soundtrack for this one, at least not until later on. What did you think of the choice of having commentary?
Bizarre. I think it was more strange that it felt like it didn't come in until a few minutes. I guess when they rung the bell. But the fact you had that long bit beforehand with no one saying anything, and even when commentary kicked in, they weren't talking as regularly as they normally would. So it just felt like they were doing a kind of should we be here? Should we talk about this? It didn't work for me.
I found it do you guys remember if there was commentary during Stadium Stampede?
Yeah, definitely. I would.
Yeah.
It was a long. I feel like it was a long match, so you had to have it there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
So it seemed to me like, rather than go directly for like the Final Deletion type of cinematic match, it seemed like they were more so going for something like Stadium Stampede, where you could somehow excuse it as part of like a live show feel, even though it was obviously clearly pre-taped. And I think the experiment, though, in this case definitely didn't work. Like JR watching this, especially, like you could tell this was not his wheelhouse.
I wish he'd just sit it out,
like it.
to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine. You've switched commentary around a bunch. You've got other commentators there. It drags the match down hearing a voice like JR clearly, like, hating what he's watching. And
You
really,
can tell, right?
There's no interest in his voice, and all his comments are kind of sarcastic, and just, it'd be better if he just didn't call it. Just leave it to Excalibur.
This one's weird though, because we've watched some of the other ones, and I'm talking about like the TNA, the Impact deletions. They felt so different. So maybe like doing it with music and the guys talking to each other, because that would Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy in the OG one, like were just talking to each other. You didn't have commentary. You had the music and the sound effects and them talking. Whereas this was like a match, and then it kicks in with the music and stuff. So it wasn't shot or put together as well as some of the other ones. Like, and I'm talking like there's the deletion, the decay or deletion. There's like the WWE versions of it. It felt completely different. It almost didn't feel like a cinematch because the way it was filmed didn't quite get to that good shots and stuff. I don't know. I didn't like this at all, but we're just about to start talking about it.
So they brawl through the Hardy compound, and we go to the fountain in the Hardy compound.
It was lit.
Matt brings out the scepter of Mephistopheles, which was this a callback? Like I don't recall this.
Scepter
no idea.
Imhotep. I don't know what.
No idea.
Chat room, let us know if it is. They fight to a ring that's set up in the middle of the compound, and Matt at this point brings in a table, powerbomb Sammy through it, and this is when Ortiz and Santana come in to triple team Matt Hardy. But here to even the odds are Private Party, who arrive, and then Matt and Sammy continue to fight using Roman candles as Sammy slips and falls into a mud pit. Like in the midst of all this, we have Private Party and Ortiz and Santana engaging in like I would say like what felt like a pretty lengthy match. It was not just really just like it felt like a full-on match that these two were having.
They were doing drop-down, leapfrogs,
they were doing
arm drags. Like it wasn't a brawl. This is all right. There's a ring here. Let's wrestle.
Also, like they come to it cuts to them briefly, and they're like on walkie-talkies, like, Matt, are you okay? Over. All right, we better get there. It's like, what the fuck?
And it takes them forever to get there.
So long.
Why would they just be there?
Why wouldn't you just be at the compound in the house? I don't understand.
Yeah. So what the first major cameo I would say of this match was
stand in the back.
So we see a masked figure holding somebody hostage, and this somebody is the Hurricane. Not to be outdone with cameos, this person unmasks, and it's Gangrel.
Oh,
Gangrel.
I marked out. I love
huge.
Gangrel.
We love some vampires in wrestling.
Gangrel, who says, Matt, I was your mentor, and I was Sammy's first mentor. But he holds loyalty to Sammy. And if you remember, I mean, WWE fans, of course, the Brood, after Edge and Christian, they were replaced by the Hardys. So that absolutely makes sense. And I suppose, is David Heath actually in real life Sammy Guevara's former teacher?
Yes, I have heard that actually. I legit have heard that he was. I mean, they could lie, but I have heard the tie-ins. I believe. I mean, the dude's still wrestling. Gangrel's still working indie dates and training and stuff like that.
He looked pretty good to me, actually.
The only thing was missing was the theme. I mean, that's the best part of Gangrel. Is that theme song.
I'm honestly, I'm surprised they even got to use the Hurricane.
Well, he won his feud with Road Dogg on Twitter, so he was allowed to bring this back.
I guess he didn't call himself the Hurricane, did he? He was just in his ring gear.
Yeah,
did they not? I feel like the announcers actually called him Hurricane Helms, and I don't know.
Maybe Hurricane Helms is what he's allowed.
Well, that's
to
their
go
bad,
by.
I think.
I was waiting for Gregory Helms to show up out of the water. It didn't happen.
It did happen, actually. It did happen. It absolutely did happen.
No, he turned into like the other Helms guy, the interviewer dude.
The reporter wasn't it reporter Gregory Helms?
He had a different name though. I'm going to research this way.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So something I'm going to need maybe your guidance on as well. Matt frees Helms from the clutches of Gangrel, and then Hurricane Helms says, "It's been 2 years. What took you so long?" And I guess this was referencing the last time we saw Hurricane Helms in one of these.
Yeah.
What happened?
So he was in one with like the Hardy Boy. I'm pretty sure there was a 3-count like reunion in one of them. Gregory Helms went through. He was like either Sugar Shane or whoever he was in 3-count. There was like more of the Hardy Boys friends, obviously like Jeff as well. But like even Cameron Grimes had a cameo in one of these things as Trevor Lee. But yeah, Gregory Helms was in these before.
Well, it was Helms who wrote these.
Right.
Matt
Okay.
Hardy.
Yeah. Gotcha.
A lot of the broken universe and character was apparently Helms' idea. So
See, but when he says 2 years, I mean, 2 years ago he was in the
He'd have been in
WWE. He was
WWE.
not. He was not doing one of these Impact, total nonstop deletion matches or anything like that. So, was there another reference that he was?
Did
Yeah.
Shane Helms
referring
go?
to?
Did he go to WWE as a producer at all?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
probably
Yeah,
then.
he was
It's
recently
probably
let
just
go.
calling back to their time together in. Like, I don't think an actual callback to anything we've seen on TV, but I just guess when they last worked together.
well wouldn't have been 2 years. It
No,
would have been
that's
like
true.
several months ago.
There's
So,
stuff in
I
their
don't know, I
personal
might be
life we don't know about, clearly.
Anyway, I might be missing something. Again, chat room, if you guys have any insight, let us know. So Matt apologizes. He said he had to get to AEW in order to finish this. Helms is about to chokeslam Sammy Guevara, who throws him into the lake of reincarnation, and this is where we see the reemergence of reporter Gregory Helms.
You're right. I just looked it
Sammy's-
up, Way. Gregory Helms was the name of him as a reporter, but I'm remembering Gregory Helms when he was like the cruiserweight guy. Gregory Helms.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, he changed his name because Shane McMahon. There can't be more than one Shane. So Sammy super kicks him back in. JR, I can't imagine, like, I don't know what was going through his mind watching something like this. Gangrel has somehow made his way now into the ring with Private Party and Ortiz and Santana, and Helms joins him. Everybody joins him. I guess Hurricane Helms was reincarnated after being kicked back into the water. Sammy chases Matt down with the sledgehammer, and at this point, Skarsgård the boat interrupts, falling nearly into Sammy, which forces Sammy to go into the Dome of Deletion. Matt calls for the Dome of Deletion to close, and now we have background music inside the Dome of Deletion. Sammy, there's a ring, of course. Sammy takes the steel turnbuckle hook off of it, starts strangling Matt with the ring rope, sets Matt onto a table as he climbs a ladder, touching the roof of this barn. He delivers a swanton off of it, and then he gets a 2 count. Matt hits a twist of fate, but Sammy is able to take the move. He takes the move at a really high angle. It makes it look really good, by the way. Matt spears Sammy off the apron and through a table onto the floor, and the camera is positioned so that we don't see the point of impact, because we cut back to Sammy Guevara, who is lifted off of the back of his head, and we see a puddle of blood from the back of his head, recreating Matt Hardy's legitimate injury that he suffered at the last pay-per-view. Matt then unfolds a chair and jabs it into Sammy's head, recreating the other injury legitimately that Matt Hardy suffered in the other incident that these two had earlier in the feud. Matt says, "You made me who I am," and then delivers a one-man concerto to Sammy as blood gushes out of Sammy Guevara's mouth. This is when the music swells and Matt Hardy wins, ending this match at 19 minutes.
Oh, fuck.
39
Really?
seconds.
Oh,
Yeah, according to John Pollock's stopwatch. Yeah, that's how long this was.
excuse my mouth, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It felt like it went for an hour.
Yeah.
This was very interesting, to say the least. How do you unpack all of this? It was really cool to see Gangrel. And
Gangrel was great.
That was it.
The YouTube room actually said that there was a special on the WWE Network, like a Hardy Halloween special, where Hurricane got kidnapped in it. So that was 2008.
he
That
also
is a
was-
deep cut. I mean,
Yeah,
these
he-
are all pretty deep cuts, I have to say.
He was in the total nonstop deletion, and he was thrown into the lake, and he came out as the 3 count Sugar Shane, and he was with like his Helms Dynasty and filling in the spots there. So when he mentioned like the long-term booking, they were doing it because it was so long ago that whatever. But yeah, this was weird. This wasn't very good. This was so strange. It's like they let Matt Hardy take the reins yet again because he's been creative in the past, but something clearly didn't click here, and I thought this was kind of embarrassing, really.
I just think it's these deletion things were fun a few years ago. They've ran their course. I mean, there were some cool spots like the ladder, the swanton off the ladder looked great. The moonsault off the tractor wheel I thought was pretty cool, but this just went on forever and just was. This show was long, and this wasn't the time for this kind of match. I didn't particularly like the others getting involved and just wrestling in the background. it just wasn't entertaining for me at all, and some of the gags just died.
And are we not going to mention the fact that the whole angle for the past few weeks of MJF trying to join the Inner Circle? Well, Gangrel just joined the Inner Circle himself. He helped Sammy. He's fighting alongside with Proud and Powerful. He looked like he was in the Inner Circle to me.
I hope so. I hope he's a permanent addition
he should
to the
be.
Inner Circle.
I think Tony Khan actually said in the post show interview that don't expect Helms in Gangrel very much. So I think he'll be disappointed.
Oh, damn.
You know, I actually felt like this would have been a great way to break up like a 9-card match. You know, like go to your cinematic match for a little bit. I don't think I expected it to be quite 19 minutes long. It in execution, it definitely left something to be desired. You know, and I think much of that comes down to the way it was put together and edited. I think if you're doing one of these, I understand, like, you know, they've kind of established their own tone for cinematic matches with the Stadium Stampede, which was very successful. But I think when you're promoting a Final Deletion type of match, it needs to be in that style. And that means you have soundtracks in the background throughout the entire thing. The editing itself needs to be tighter, and the gags needed to be tighter. You didn't get enough gags, and the gags themselves were not very strong.
No.
Like,
You're
was
right.
like,
The editing was sloppy.
The editing
as well.
was really bad. Yeah, actually, it was a rehash of all the old ones. Really, like the fireworks, the ring, everything. It was just there.
Gangrel, I thought was clever. You know, that definitely got a pop from a lot of people. But like, as far as the other ones, it's like Private Party, like that's not special. Even seeing Helms that we've seen like so many times. Seriously, you couldn't get anybody else from your past. You know,
Where the hell was Shannon Moore? Shannon Moore, let's go.
Not to say like Shannon Moore would have made this thing like that.
Oh,
much
it would
better,
have.
but like
It would have.
Helms coming in as like reporter Gregory Helms, like it doesn't do a whole lot for me. And granted, maybe they're actually tied up like with what characters they can use, but that didn't stop him in Impact.
They couldn't get Jeff.
The Impact ones,
Will-O-the-Wisp or Itchweed. Such classics.
There are a lot of, I think, different things that they could have done that could have been maybe a bit more clever, and I just didn't sense that here. The lack of music was really strange, and the commentary really did not add anything. In fact, I thought it took away. Like, this is the type of match that I think a lot of these gigs really kind of speak for themselves. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you have to go host a podcast afterwards and ask a chat room to fill you in. But that type of thing, you know, it's instead of like feeling like, you know, a next in the series, unfortunately, this one felt like it was almost like a cheap imitation of it. Yep. And I think much of that comes down to, you know, you don't have Jeremy Borash. You don't have like the other members of the staff. I believe like Jimmy was like another one of Impact's production people that were working on this. And it just didn't work. Didn't really feel that great. And I think they were also banking on like the live crowd being a lot more reactive than they were.
They were booing it.
They weren't.
They were booing and saying boring. You could hear it. Yeah.
Really? I
Yeah,
couldn't
it
really
sounded
hear that.
like
Oh
that,
yeah. There was points in
Wow.
the match you could hear, like, obviously there's only like what 1,000 people in this arena here, but you could hear at some points of this booing, just straight booing, like not like heat booing, just solid boos, and then like boring, like, so they were bored because they were sitting there for 20 minutes.
Wait, what did you think of the kind of callback spot with banging the head off the floor with Sammy?
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a tricky one because on the one hand, it's like certainly like what this feud is most known for. And I think if you're going to end the feud, it makes sense why you would call back to something like that. But certainly you can argue about taste, you know, when it comes to like two very legitimate injuries and one of them like being a very serious concussion that a lot of people arguably don't want to be reminded of. So to do it in sort of like a fictitious way, almost, it's not mocking it, but in a way like it could come across that way. I don't know if that was the best decision creatively.
I think also in a match that is more comedic as well, it's quite an ugly visual of seeing someone's head cracked on a pavement with blood pouring out. Tonally, it doesn't really fit in a match where just a moment ago you've got Gangrel holding the Hurricane hostage.
Well, fake blood is Gangrel's thing, isn't it? So,
It is true.
Maybe that's where it came from. So that was Elite Deletion. We shall see if we get any more. Lance Archer is in the back, or he's in an alley with Jake Roberts, and I didn't really catch up on this news, but like I read something today about Jake Roberts.
Yeah.
Did you guys get the story?
Oh no,
Yeah. So apparently, like, Jake was in like he was like in a hospital or something the past few days or this past week or something like that. All I know is he put out a tweet or something being like, hey, I've done some crazy things in my life, along the lines of just don't smoke, because apparently he's still a smoker and it's affecting some health thing in him here. So I was kind of taken aback that he was on camera here, because there was these reports about him. So I hope he's all right.
Well, I guess we don't know when they might have shot this, but
I mean, it's every other Lance Archer promo ever. You probably could have just played one from Dynamite 2 weeks ago and no one would ever notice, because it's something. Everyone's gonna die, and I don't want food. I want people. That's what I got out of this.
Yes. So we should. Anyway, we wish him the best, of course. But
yes,
we continue
definitely
here with this segment. Lance Archer is beating up some guy in the alley, and Jake says Lance Archer is tired of training. He's tired of beating up all his training opponents. He's hungry. He doesn't want food, and he wants people. So he needs somebody to step up so that they can feed him. MJF versus Chris Jericho. If MJF wins, he joins the Inner Circle. There is a huge sing-along to Judas at the start, followed by lots of thank you Jericho chants, while people boo the hell out of MJF. So not only, did you naturally get these dynamics at the start, but clearly both of them were playing up these heel babyface dynamics at the start of this match. Jericho beats MJF on the floor. He grabs the camera, shoots it at MJF, and gives him the finger, to a great ovation from this crowd. So Jericho very much leaning into favoring himself with this audience. Jericho goes for the Judas effect on the floor, but MJF avoids it and hits the post instead. The post is really doing a lot of damage on this particular show. MJF begins working over Jericho's shoulder. Jericho comes back, hits a lion salt, hits the 10 punches, and then even a Frankensteiner, which at his age is just awesome. The crowd starts chanting, Jericho, Jericho. MJF again targets the arm. Really nice judo arm drag for 2. We have a yay boo spot with Jericho only fighting with one hand. He chops MJF out of desperation, but sacrifices that injured arm in the process. MJF applies his first attempt at the Salt of the Earth and or Fujiwara armbar. Jericho transitioned into the walls of Jericho. MJF hits a codebreaker in the ropes, followed by the heat seeker for 2. MJF then attempts his own lion salt, but Jericho avoids it and lands a codebreaker for 2. The Judas effect at this point is caught into the Salt of the Earth again, but Jericho gets to the rope. Wardlow at this point is waved down to the ring, and he hands MJF the diamond ring. MJF misses with the punch. At this point, with the referee turned around watching Wardlow, Jericho waves Jake Hager in, who hands him Floyd the Bat. MJF then sees the bat and drops to his back, doing the Eddie Guerrero spot. At this point, they're both just trying to out-heal each other with, all the tricks in the book. Aubrey yells at Chris Jericho, and this allows MJF to get a distraction roll-up, grabbing the trunks for the victory, 16 minutes, 14 seconds.
This felt like a Dynamite main event to me, which Dynamite main events are great usually. They're normally great and move story along and stuff, but it didn't feel like a big pay-per-view match. I think part of that is, to me, I think this is kind of the first part of a bigger story, and I could see these two getting into more of a blood feud with whatever's going to happen with the Inner Circle. I liked the finish with the kind of Eddie Guerrero spot, because MJF tricked Jericho into getting into the Inner Circle, so I don't think it really hurts Jericho at all, the loss. But the match was fine. I feel this would have been better if you kicked off the pay-per-view with this, because after the last match, I was now kind of flagging, and this wasn't the kind of style match I needed at this point in the show. I think you open the show up with Judas, everyone's singing along.
Except Ivelisse.
She
can't even sell Judas either. Yeah, I noticed that.
You start with Judas, it's great open to the show, and you end with a big moment of MJF joining the Inner Circle. I think the Hangman Omega match or the tag match would have worked better here, because it was just too slow a style to follow the atrocity of the last match.
Yeah, I didn't quite get into this as much as I kind of wanted to, and I think maybe I was burned out. I was groaning at that last match that it kind of took me back a bit, but Jericho doing the Frankensteiner off the top and lion salts, he turns 50 years old in 2 days. That's crazy. So, does that mean he's out of the demo? Oh, no.
Yeah.
The demo god might be out of the demo. Jeez. Well, it's still impressive that he can still work. This work this way, obviously he can work, but MJF is someone I'm still on the fence about his in-ring stuff, because everyone's always like he's the greatest talker, and he's great. And the coming out with the light up jacket with the Burberry stuff was super funny. I think he's totally in his character and knows what he's doing, from his tweets to the way he acts. He's great. I just felt like the match here was just kind of flat. It wasn't a bad match. It was just, it happened, and I'm more interested, obviously, in what happening. Jericho with the throwaway comment that MJF is in the inner circle, but now so is Wardlow. So there's like definitely some tension, and we don't know where it can go, because he did say that both of them are joined in the inner circle. Meanwhile, Proud and Powerful and Gangrel are just lost in the woods somewhere in North Carolina.
He should have said MJF and Wardlow and Gangrel are in the inner circle just for no reason.
He should have said MJF is in the inner circle and Wardlow, like, because now he's like, he sees his eyes on Wardlow, like, ooh, this guy could be an asset to me. And then now because him and Wardlow and Jake had this stare off at the end too, like, we're the big muscles, and yeah, so there's definitely some play to go with this storyline. There's definitely got some legs.
See, maybe it was my coffee, midway through the show, but like I had plenty of energy for this one, even after the Elite Deletion, and I really enjoyed it. Like, it was, for me, refreshing to see Jericho really leaning to playing a babyface for the first time in a very long time. It was the right dynamic for a match to facilitate that, and it was like almost like fun and nostalgic to see Jericho almost work like a older babyface style. And as far as like MJF goes, like, I thought he looked really good in the ring. Like, everybody only talks about like how good he is on the mic, but in ring, I think his technical ability was really. This wasn't necessarily like a match that like completely displayed it, but what little you did see, I thought was like really strong, and I think he's a very well-rounded performer. Yeah.
His sort of transition of the Judas effect, I thought was excellent. Sorry to jump on you, but I thought that was excellent, transitioning into the armbar there.
And I really like the finish here with like both of them trying to like out cheat the other. First MJF trying to cheat with a weapon, then Jericho saying, I've got a weapon too, and him trying to cheat with a weapon, and then MJF doing the Eddie spot to out cheat the guy with the weapon, only to win with grabbing the trunks and a roll up. To me, it was like very layered in terms of like heel technique. So it carries the story forward. It's certainly like a first chapter in this long thing, and I imagine we'll see a reiteration of it. So in your mind, do you think that Jericho is going to turn on MJF and not the other way around?
What if MJF takes over the inner circle? There's so many different like possibilities. I mean, Sammy basically died earlier, so is he still in the inner circle? Like, there's so many.
I could see MJF like trying to be Jericho's right hand man, and maybe even angle for Sammy to be kicked out, because they seem to have the most heat within the group. Sammy seemed to be the one that really didn't want MJF there. So I can see MJF trying to get Sammy out the group.
And he's like, you lost your match.
But you've got all these little potential feuds. I love the look between Hager and Wardlow. It wasn't overdone, but they also kind of both offered the other one to leave the ring first. And that could be a cool rivalry down the line.
True.
And you've got the opportunity of maybe Jericho and Hager leaving, and MJF and Wardlow taking their place. I think there's a lot of different scenarios you can build from this, but I'd like to see them have some fun with just having the inner circle kind of united with these guys for a few weeks before we need to start thinking about breaking these up and which way we're going to go.
The Nightmare family has like 17 people in it. The inner circle's got like
9.
It's great. Factions in wrestling, and maybe Jericho will just continue to be a babyface. He needed to be a babyface today because he was probably crying all day earlier, so it worked for him today. But I loved it. I loved the fact that he was babyface.
After the match, Jericho welcomes, of course, both MJF and Wardlow to the inner circle. As MJF opens the ropes for Jericho to leave the ring, he gives a very subtle wink to the camera, which is interesting. They announced AEW Revolution, their next pay-per-view taking place on February 27th. And on that note, in the post-fight press conference, post-show press conference, Tony Khan also announced AEW Beach Break, which will be a special TV, or which will either be a special, I believe a special edition of Dynamite, probably similar to Bash at the Beach.
Is it because they lost the name?
Yeah, they're replacing it with Beach Break.
Yeah, okay.
We have Dasha with the best friends and Orange Cassidy in the back. Orange Cassidy has nothing to say about John Silver. Miro and Kip Sabian and Penelope arrive, and Sabian wants Cassidy to apologize to Penelope for Wednesday. Cassidy says sorry. Kip slaps him, says it's not good enough, and Orange Cassidy says cool and leaves. We have our main event, an I Quit match for the AEW title between Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. The gear that Eddie Kingston wore here was really interesting because he wore a Tracy Smothers t-shirt, which unfortunately was missed by the camera. So we know about this because Excalibur explained it to us afterwards. He even tried to set up a big reveal too, but they were on a wide shot.
Yeah, we noticed the shirt and him coming out, but you're right, they didn't get a clear shot of what it. I'm sure people will try to screen grab it or he'll post it, but I think his gear was a lot of talk at least in our watch along. What did you think of his gear besides that shirt?
It was as Excalibur also alluded to after the fact, he was wearing a Mitsuharu Misawa themed green and silver, and Eddie Kingston, I don't think it's any secret that he's a huge fan of the King's Road, so this was really cool to see.
He's a big fan of the long and winding Royal Road as well, I'm sure. He has to be.
I'll bet he is.
Yeah.
Future guest, that would be a dream guest. Do it, WH.
It's interesting. Literally, just the other day, I was meeting up with Davie. We were on a walk, and I, for some reason, had the Misawa theme song stuck in my head. So I highly recommend anyone who power walks to it. It's a banger.
Misawa just challenged for the BDE title in our WWE 2K game, didn't he?
Yeah, my Hangman is still undefeated for that. But yeah, we have a great Misawa in the game.
When are you guys gonna get on Twitch? I want to see some of these matches.
We're working on it, Wai. We're working on it.
Okay.
We're working on it.
So they brawl on the floor in this match, and very early on, Mox is busted open. He grabs a barbed wire bat from the bottom of the ring and then presses it into Eddie Kingston's forehead as Eddie Kingston starts bleeding from the mouth. Kingston delivers multiple backdrop suplexes. He reaches and pulls for a strand of barbed wire from this bat, wraps it bare around his hand to punch Mox, digging into Mox's head. He then delivers a spinning back fist with that barbed wire hand as Kingston's bloody face just looks insane. He starts to apply Kimura lock, but Moxley bites Kingston's knee in order to escape. Two chairs are unfolded in the ring. Moxley suplexes Kingston through one of them. Kingston scatters a bag full of thumbtacks. Moxley attempts a paradigm shift onto the Kingston, but Kingston reverses and hits a Uranagi to Moxley through the tacks instead. Moxley is refusing to quit, so Kingston goes to his next trick. He goes to Doc Samson's table, grabs a bottle of rubbing alcohol to pour all over the open wounds of Jon Moxley's back.
I bet it was rubbing alcohol
they're
as well.
Sick.
They
they're
could have so
twisted.
easily used water, but I'm sure they actually just used the real thing because these guys.
Oh, of course.
For those keeping score, so they just used thumbtacks, which now he's bleeding all over the back, and now he's got rubbing alcohol. Pro wrestling.
Oh, they're method actors.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They need to feel it. Kingston keeps going for this ring of barbed wire, but it was kind of strange where he would pick it up and then put it back down several times. Maybe it was just him bringing it into the ring for Moxley to use later, perhaps. So
yeah,
Moxley
it was nah, I don't want it now.
Yeah. So Moxley is going for the bulldog choke, Kingston's going for the bulldog choke, but Moxley reverses it into the rear naked choke and then the gauge pile driver, and then the bulldog choke and then the paradigm shift. Moxley now grabs the strand of barbed wire. He now wraps it around his forearm. Kingston at this point knows the end is coming because he's knocked out. But instead of laying down or even fighting back, he just gives Moxley the finger. So Moxley, with the barbed wire wrapped around his arm, applies the bulldog choke. And Eddie Kingston, in, I guess, sort of I'm sorry, I love you moment of the match, he knows his dream of bringing that championship to his mother Ruthie was slipping away. He's nearly crying while he's in this bulldog choke as he says, I quit. Jon Moxley retains the title. 18 minutes, 58 seconds.
Yeah, this definitely was one of the hyped matches because the promos between both of these guys were fantastic, and finally getting to like the story here, it had the gross hardcore stuff, meaning like the I don't think I've ever seen the rubbing alcohol being brought into a thing, and we all have felt that pain. So when he dumps it onto Moxley like back, not even the back, but he then like grabs thumbtacks and punches them, and they're stuck in Moxley's like forehead at one point, and like that's when I was like, oh, just imagine the feeling. You could feel it, like, oh, that probably hurts. And like we said, these guys are probably actually using this just because they're like, it's we want to get into the role here. But I felt like I was waiting for it to kind of get the story of it was really good because it's super emotional with the backstory and everything, but I felt like as it was starting to get to like that next level or next gear, if you will, it just ended. So I was like, oh, okay, because you figured he got the barbed wire with the hand, and he was calling for the bulldog choke, and you knew as soon as he's gonna choke him, there's no way he's getting out of that. So I still liked it, but I didn't quite get that epic. Like violent match that I almost was promised and hyped for. I still thought it was good. You mentioned a match reminded you of like a Dynamite main event. This kind of felt like just a step above their last time they met. And I'm not knocking it. Maybe I was expecting the next level. Like Kenny and Moxley did some really wild stuff, whereas these guys, like, I thought they was gonna get to that level, and it just didn't. Again, I didn't dislike it. I don't know, something was missing for me. I don't know.
I felt this was better than a Dynamite match for sure. I really enjoyed it, but I'm with you. It didn't get to that final gear, and I think the nature of a kind of an I Quit match or a Last Man Standing match or those sort of things is it's all a crescendo. It always starts quite slow and builds up and builds up and builds up. And I was starting to really, really get into this match, and it just. When we've seen the promos these guys had, for me, it didn't reach the emotional peak of the promo on Wednesday. And I think these guys are capable of bringing that into the match. It was a great I Quit match. I enjoyed it. But you said, sorry, this was 18 minutes something? And the
1858.
And the Elite Deletion was longer. Like
19.
Yeah, I felt this to me felt like it had another kind of 5-6 minutes in it, because it felt like it was getting ready for that final, like, really emotional climax of Eddie Kingston having to say those words, I quit. And he was selling it with the choke, but I don't know, I was just expecting more to the end. This wasn't a bad match by any means, but I just felt, it just got cut really early.
Part of me wonders if like there were any timing issues towards the end of the show here, whether or not they had to scrap some things. I don't disagree with you that like maybe it was a step below like the level of emotion that I think they, set the story up to feel. You wanted this one to feel. Maybe the thing is, it's like we have now matches that are strictly story and very little wrestling. And I'm thinking about like Jey Uso, Roman Reigns, where it's just strictly like an acting scene in the match. And I don't think that's so much AEW style. I think they still put a huge like value on the in-ring content, especially when you're talking about a hardcore style that's expected between these two. But even in that sense, like perhaps like AEW at this point has like kind of elevated the expectation for hardcore so high with what they've done in the past that this almost was expected to not only reach that but exceed it, with things stacking over top of the other. I think there were perhaps like things that they could have done better with Eddie Kingston continuing to escalate like the danger of each item that he was introducing. First with the bat, then it was like with the thumbtacks, and then it was with the alcohol. And I don't know if like each step was perhaps like communicated effectively that it was going to be the next step, because I felt like usually these like chapters within the match are broken up with like attempts to make them quit. You didn't really have like like a big kind of like make them say quit type of like moment in between these things. It was just more so like one spot after the next, after the next, after the next. So maybe for me, like the building aspect of it wasn't so much there. And then maybe by the end, like the big spot was what, like the barbed wire around the wrist, and then like that shit was cool. I thought that was actually really well done. But maybe like at this point, like some of the appetite is for something even bigger than like one strand of barbed wire, which
that's not even my cup of tea.
It's a law of diminishing.
But
I don't know if I'm just so used to watching that more kind of dramatic style on WWE, where I'm kind of expecting Mox to be going like, "Don't make me do this, Eddie. Don't make me do this," and it's very kind of NXT like, over the top dramatic.
Shawn Michaels,
The way this match was built, it kind of felt like it needed that, and maybe I'm conditioned to that's what I'm used to in wrestling these days, but. It didn't
I think
feel
it would have
like
helped
it was
this
that
match.
dramatic thing. I think so. Because these two have proved they can really act really well.
Oh, yeah, they're so good.
I think it needed it. And with Moxley, like, Eddie's last line last week was, "You're going to have to kill me. I'm not quitting. You're going to have to kill me." It needed to almost feel like that. Like,
he barely
Moxley
left the
is
ring.
really pulling the trigger on him.
I'll say, like, I think Eddie Kingston nailed the facial expression for the end of like a scene like that. You know, by the time he was in that bulldog choke with the thing, like the look on his face, like he was about to cry, like you could tell the emotion going through his head of disappointing his mother after like devoting 18 years of his life to this shit.
Sorry, Ma.
Like, he nailed that, but like it maybe the build up to it could have been a little bit better, you know, so that you know exactly what was at stake. Maybe the job came down to like. The announcers having to constantly remind you what Eddie Kingston was fighting for. I hate to be so critical of it personally because I actually really enjoyed the match. I think, you know, despite it maybe not being the most violent match we've ever seen in AEW, I thought it was as violent as it needed to be. Quite frankly, as violent as I probably wanted it to be, that I was comfortable with. And I thought in the end it was like a really well told story, and I think that has to account for something, you know. My interest going into this was really high, and that was due to the incredible work of both these men, in particular Eddie Kingston, who just came out of nowhere this year, captured the attention of every AEW fan, and you know, I think by the end of this program showed that he was a master storyteller. Do you guys feel like coming out of this, he stays heel or he turns?
Oh,
I think he turns.
Oh, really?
He's obviously way more natural as a babyface, but I feel if you had crowds, he'd already be turned. Like, I mean, I know they've got crowds, but full crowds. I feel it's he's already done the sore loser thing. So I think it's time to move on. And if Pac's ready, Pac is such a perfect heel, and I think Eddie Kingston as a babyface trying to put his life back together after this huge loss, after the biggest and maybe only opportunity he's ever going to get. I think that's more compelling.
I really don't know how much of this is like planned ahead of time, because like the Eddie Kingston run was not planned ahead of time. No, he just caught fire, and I think it was just something they ran with. So like whether or not they had this like long arc for Eddie Kingston's character set in their minds, I can't really say. But the way they built this angle with Moxley, you can't help but cheer for this underdog in Eddie Kingston. And so by the end of this, it was like, I think they very much hinted it, honestly, towards the end here. Like he's going to be one of your biggest baby faces. And I think Pac kind of like standing there, like waiting to, you know, he'd be a perfect guy to take over Kingston's stable.
Yeah.
I think Eddie Kingston, though, like obviously whenever he talks, he does still talk to like the crowd. Obviously the crowd is really smaller and spread out, but he's like always like demeaning to them and like kind of like, shut up, you guys don't matter and whatever. I used to be
That's
one
a babyface move these days, isn't it?
These days, I guess. Yeah. I feel like the way he's kind of the manager for his best friend, Penta, and then Rey Fenix, and like they're having a match this week, and I feel like those guys could be baby faces, but where it comes like to the Butcher and Blade, I still feel like they're this weird. The fam are still bad guys, so I feel like he's just gonna brush it off, the dirt off his shoulder, and he'll continue like running his mouth. And I liked the way that you kind of. Everyone was like, oh, it's Jon Moxley, and we go by wins and losses. There was no way he was going to lose this. But then, like, in the back of your head, you're like, oh, wouldn't it be like a wild card move for them to just pull this audible with this guy who's caught fire? Like, the way this guy has hyped me for this match is just incredible. I've watched him on the indies here and there. I saw him at Sneaky D's about a year ago in SummerSlam weekend, and now he's main eventing this title match. Crazy. And I'm like, man, you've made it like so far, because you got that silver tongue, and I think the way he storytells, even in the ring, is really good. But I kind of don't want to see him go as a babyface. I think he'll make some, maybe an excuse. He does not run. Is he one for excuses? He says he didn't get eliminated and he didn't tap. So I mean, this time he did quit, but I still want to see him as a bad guy.
There's also the element of him constantly referring to Penta as his best friend, and that to me in pro wrestling is just setting up a future program between the two. So who's the one that's going to turn? So at the end of this match, Moxley attempts to shake Kingston's hand. Kingston is like very disappointed. You know, he doesn't move for a long, long time lying on that floor. And then he just refuses to shake Mox's hand, disappointed, exits the stage like, you know, a heartbroken child. And then this clears the way for Kenny Omega to enter. And this is, of course, a preview of the next major main event that we're going to see with AEW. These two, of course, had their match a year ago at Full Gear, and both characters, I would say, you know, quite different, or at least quite developed by this point. So we look forward to that.
Did you see Kenny pick up one of those thumbtacks? And he was kind of like, I remember these, and like flicks it away because he's like, yeah, I remember getting a little extreme
a year ago with this,
with barbed wire and shit. But it's almost like I'm gonna now out wrestle you because the characters have changed more, I'd say, with Kenny. But that's definitely not going to be like a pay-per-view because Revolution, the February pay-per-view, that's a long time. So obviously they're going to do like these special dynamites that they've been doing. So you mentioned that Tony Khan may have mentioned the beach break or something. They should have
January.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So beach break in January. That's not that far away. Maybe that's the show that Kenny fights Moxley on.
I think this will be at Revolution. I can see can see Kenny maybe defending his number one contendership. I can see Moxley having a few title shots, but this feels like the biggest match you can do with the company at the moment.
It feels too big to give out on an edition of Dynamite, but you know, can they drag it out for that long?
I'm surprised. Why not just make another pay-per-view like the beginning of January or the ending of December or something? But if it spreads out, I feel like the storyline will be really good. I was not a Dean Ambrose guy, but Jon Moxley definitely can get it done with the promos and the match hype, and same with this new meta heel-esque Kenny, and I feel like the storytelling and the story of this feud could get reignited and be even better than it was last time.
What did you guys think of this show?
Overall, I really liked it. I think the women's match and the the Elite Deletion really kind of killed it for me, and I think the fact that the pace of the last two matches, I enjoyed them, but they were a slower pace. It kind of definitely dragged for me. But overall, I think if you remove those two matches from the show, I think top to bottom, this would have been a fantastic show.
So sorry to cut you off, but on that note, like going into this show, it was a 9-card show. It was not something I was looking forward to. But in execution, I don't think the length of it hit me as hard as it might have hit you. But certainly, it's something that a lot of people can continue to complain about with AEW.
It wasn't like All Out. Like it was definitely way better paced than All Out. But I think that was because of the quality of the matches.
Yeah.
So how long was this show? Like total?
3 hours.
It ended at like quarter.
I think.
Yeah, quarter to midnight.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I mean, yeah,
with the kickoff, 4 hours, about 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. But I agree with what David said. Like, I thought the stuff that I didn't like really kind of hurt the show. I know the deletion would have made me like if this wasn't a pay-per-view, I probably would have turned off and done some other things because it was so ridiculous. I was like, it's kind of the stuff that makes you embarrassed to be a wrestling fan. That match, in my opinion, it was like a rehash of the old ones, and it really affected the show for me. However, that happened after what was my match of the night, and the standout was the tag team match, obviously the Dream Rejoice tag team match of the Lakers and the Celtics, the Young Bucks and FTR. I thought that was really, really good, and it was the standout match. And not knocking some of the other stuff, like Kenny and Hangman was so good, and I know there's another main event match up in the future, but I thought this was like almost light years ahead of the last time we watched one of these AEW pay-per-views. I just like Darby and Cody was good. Even the main event, like I mentioned, I didn't love it, but it's still like the story of it was conclusive and it was good. So all in all, this was a fun show. I definitely give it thumbs up.
I actually really enjoyed the whole show. I mean, even like some of the weaker points that we've discussed on this show to me weren't really all that bad. There were definitely it's not a perfect show. I don't know. It's hard to say like, card of the year, show of the year. This was certainly like again, not a perfect show, but it was one that I think had really high expectations going in, a really good looking card on paper, pretty good build for I think the matches that really matter. And I think like in terms of story and in terms of in quality, for me, it delivered on almost all of them. So we see what you guys thought on the forum. If you don't mind joining me, Braden and Davie.
Absolutely,
Yeah, definitely.
From forum.postwrestling.com, out of 10, what did you guys think of Full Gear? 8.16, which is like, honestly, like I personally expected higher, but maybe that's more in line with what you two think. Because like AEW, like especially like Dynamite, it ranks in like the high, 8 point something. So maybe we'll see some criticism in this feedback. We start off with Noah from Vaughn, who says, just an incredible show tonight from AEW. 2 5-star matches, in my opinion, with Darby and Cody, as well as a tag title match. Mox and Eddie delivered a brutal main event that capped off a tremendous show. There wasn't a single match on this show I didn't like. My only negative was the opening match. Was that the opening match didn't go longer. Felt like the ending kind of came out of nowhere. Hopefully they are able to have a longer match in the future. 9.5 out of 10. Excited to have Darby and the Bucks as new champions.
We go to Raphael from North Liberty. This was a great show. Time flew by watching wrestling. Match of the night was Omega versus Hangman, which alone was worth the cost of the show. They may have started with the best match, but every match was so different in story and tone that I never felt let down. The only thing that was missing, in my opinion, was for Jericho to be announced as not political. This show was a 10 out of 10.
I was waiting for him to tell the ref to recount, or we need a count. Screw the count. The count was off, or something like that. Definitely. We go to Ken from the internet. Are we supposed to be celebrating Sammy's death like that? I mean, it was an ultimate deletion match, but throwing a dead body into a garbage can and celebrating with fireworks seems a bit much, since we are all subject in witnessing a homicide with fireworks and dancing is a bit much, but whatever. Top to bottom, fantastic in-ring storytelling in pretty much all of the matches. Easily, in my opinion, pay-per-view of the year contender. Royal Rumble and Night 1 of WrestleMania are up there. Feel free to add what I am forgetting. 9 Portmans out of 10 Herringtons. Thank you, Ken.
I forgot to mention, we had cameos from Senior Benjamin as well as Revy Hardy.
Senior Benjamin got a pop out of me. Yeah, Revy, the opposite.
We got a Ben from Vancouver who says, very good show and the extra fans made a difference. Hangman, Omega, and Bucks FTR completely over-delivered, and I'd lean towards the tag titles for match of the night. Everything else was good to great, but there were 2 notable low points in the AEW women's title match and the Elite Deletion. They need to reevaluate Hardy and his role because he just doesn't fit in the promotion right now. Cody and Darby was also a great match and told a rewarding story they have been telling for a long time. Kingston Mox was good, but I just don't buy Eddie as a main eventer in the ring. Liked the story though. Jericho MJF, I liked as it was 2 heels out healing each other. This is part of an ongoing story that made me want to see more. Where do you guys see Pac slotting in? With Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, I think so. I'm with you, Wai.
I think Pac could go after, he could have one-off title shots here or there. You could go after Darby for the TNT title. I've missed him. I'm interested in seeing where he slots in.
We go to
He can continue a program. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
He can continue a program with Orange Cassidy, rekindle that perhaps.
We go to Brandon from Oshawa. This was the show of the year for me. Everything was either good to great. I was worried going in that the show looked so good on paper that there was no way it could deliver, especially with the FTR and Bucks match having years of anticipation, but everything hit the mark for me. There are a lot of fresh directions coming out of the show, with Darby and the Bucks winning the titles. I get the feeling the Elite Deletion will probably be the low point for most, but the appearance of Gangrel made that match for me, and that was all I needed to enjoy it. When do you guys think Kenny gets his title shot? Is Revolution too far away to wait, and does he take the title when it does happen?
Yeah, yes he does.
I think he takes the title.
He's the cleaner, and he's going to clean up. That's what's going to happen. And then one day Hangman will get a title shot.
We got a Morgan.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, that's you, right?
Yeah. We go to Crooked Letter, who says Full Gear was an apology for the disappointing All Out in a lot of ways. FTR and Young Bucks justified the hype with plenty of callbacks to tag team wrestling, even the DIY finisher. And Matt Jackson's selling was superb. Omega Hangman was terrific, and I suspect it won't be the last time between them. Darby Allin getting his crowning moment and finally dethroning Cody Rhodes to become TNT champion was terrific. The Elite Deletion match was wacky fun. Sheeta Rose was okay. And Mox and Kingston was creatively brutal with a sprinkle of CZW with a rubbing alcohol spot that's hard to come by in a pandemic. All in all, AEW rebounded with a great show.
All right, we go up next to Luke from Quebec, who says, fantastic show that delivered top to bottom, although it went a little too long. The low points were the women's match and the Elite Deletion. These Hardy matches are all about being creative, and this just felt like a rehash of old spots without anything new or clever. Sheeta has great presentation, but her offense and striking always look soft, so I can never get into her matches. The FTR Bucks match was spectacular, with its only unfortunate downside being the lack of a bigger crowd for the stream match. Sadly, I feel like JR brings the show down with his commentary. The matches are supposed to build up in intensity, and JR used to be great at this, but now every time he speaks, it brings the energy down for me. Still a great show overall. I thought the placement of the matches in particular was excellent. 8 pockets eaten out of 10.
And finally, we go to Erin from Brampton. Similar to All Out, I felt this pay-per-view was a bit too long. They almost hit 4 hours. While I enjoyed most of the shows, they definitely could have trimmed some fat. Cassidy versus Silver and Hardy versus Guevara. I'm not the biggest Darby Allin fan, but I'm glad he finally beat Cody. I feel this was the right time to make that switch. The finish to the Jericho MJF match was great. I loved how Jericho respected MJF's heel tactics. Personally, I feel the Hardy-Sammy match was the low point of the show. It was too busy. The whole broken stipulation feels dated now. It was cool in 2016, but now it makes me think that all Matt Hardy knows. Also, it was too damn long, and it didn't need to be on the show. Do you guys think AEW will keep their next pay-per-view shorter? What I always loved is how they're not afraid to put big matches on TV. So why do you think they felt the need to bloat their last 2 pay-per-views? Anyways, I hope you guys have a great Sunday.
I think there's different pressure for AEW because they're asking their audience to pay, a heftier amount per pay-per-view, whereas WWE doesn't have that pressure because it's only part of the network for $9.99. I think that's at least part of it. I think it's also because they do them so infrequently that they like to maybe over deliver. But as we've seen, over delivering doesn't always work like in terms of content time rather than quality. So could this show have been better if it didn't have, let's say, Orange Cassidy versus John Silver, or like what else could you have cut from it? I mean, certainly the Elite Deletion.
I really like that match. I'd have got rid of the Elite Deletion.
Yeah,
if you wanted to do it, put it on Dynamite. Have it already hyped up for like a Full Gear Full Out, and we're kicking off with the Elite Deletion, something like that.
So we're talking a show that's 3 hours, 45 minutes, and then plus the 30-minute thing, so 4 hours plus. Yeah, maybe a more healthy time would be somewhere in the 3-hour range. And if it continues to be part of the complaint, I imagine that's something they will take to heart. But for the time being, I don't know. We shall see how many people complain about this one. It seems like a lot of the other people in the feedback really love the show.
I really love the show. I agree.
I did as
I agree.
well.
I feel like the similar things people are saying is just some of it should have been trimmed down a little bit. Like Orange Cassidy and John Silver, I really did like, actually. It was a fun, standout little match. But yeah, could have this just been on Dynamite this upcoming Wednesday?
It just bothers me when it kind of affects my enjoyment of future matches. Like, I feel both the Jericho MJF and the main event, if that was on Dynamite, I'd have loved it because it's a more tight show. But I get in a bit of a bad mood after I've seen an Elite Deletion and a Kip Sabian backstage segment.
Like, I could have seen the Bucks and FTR go 60 and like have a draw or something. We in the watch along tonight, people were like, "Oh, watch, they're gonna go 60 and it'll be epic." And I'm like, "Oh, like imagine they did that in like some modern wrestling, that'd be pretty wild." But of course they're not because they have so many things going on. But it seems like going forward they should decide what is on a pay-per-view and what isn't. And yeah, unfortunately, it felt like really long. But I still thought it was a good show.
I mean, much of the psychology of like putting on a pay-per-view though comes down to like how attractive the card looks on paper. How many things are on this card that are must see for you? And I have to imagine like That's sorry. That's my stomach. I'm very hungry.
Wow.
See, the show was so long, Wai. You didn't get to eat, Wai. You're supposed to eat during these shows, but there was no break in it.
I will. Very soon. But it's like, like this card to me on paper looked tremendous, and there were a lot of matches that I said, if I was like, I would be glad to pay for this. I was getting my money's worth.
Yes.
If they chopped this by like 2 or 3, would I still have that feeling? Like part of the appeal of I think a card like this is that there's a different draw for everybody. Somebody might have been looking forward to the Bucks and FTR. Somebody else might have been looking forward to Moxley and Kingston.
Yeah.
Somebody else might have been Jericho and MJF. Somebody else might have been like Final Deletion or Elite Deletion.
Someone tuned in thinking they were getting a bunkhouse match, but they realized it's for free this Wednesday. So
that'll be this Wednesday, where you and I we will both be reviewing AEW Dynamite, but in separate shows as usual. And for people who want to get a very comprehensive, separate set of opinions, I encourage you to listen to everything that my friends at upNXT do. So where can they find all of that, including your watch-alongs?
Oh, thank you, Wai. Yeah, I mean, Davie's been killing it with the watch-alongs. Every pay-per-view, this guy's been. He did Impact. You did Hell in a Cell. You're going to be doing a watch-along for Survivor Series as well. I know you have. We had a lot of fun, and we always have fun. We are recording this on our YouTube, so we do our NXT post show every Wednesday as well, which we have like a little community and stuff. It's really fun.
Yeah, we love it. So join the YouTube chat. Yeah, whenever we do a pay-per-view, or every week for NXT, we do a live post show at 10:30 Eastern Time. YouTube.com/upNXT.
But Wai was mentioning, because people think Up Next, we just talk about NXT. Yeah, Up Nextra on our Patreon is a Thursday show where we talk about NXT, we talk about AEW Dynamite, we talk about what we thought was the match of the night, and sometimes ratings, and we go off on little tangents and all sorts of different stuff. So that's a weekly show that's part of our Patreon. But we do so many other things. This week we have a Was Next. We go back in time and watch old NXT, and this week we were lucky enough to talk about Big E Langston versus Seth Rollins for the NXT title back from 2013. So that's something that is on there as well. We're doing a lot of podcasts lately.
Yeah, with it being November, we're releasing our review of ECW's November to Remember. That's coming out tomorrow on our Patreon. But I think the thing that everyone's looking forward to
we got this long
is the annual Survivor Series Fantasy Draft, which Wai happened to win last time, but then this young kid, this up and comer, comes in the summer and wins the SummerSlam game. And Wai, he's been talking shit about
Andrew Thompson post wrestling. Andrew Thompson interviews has been talking mad shit.
He's our very own Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, essentially. He's worked his way into a shoot. I don't know if you've heard this past week's Up Next, but he joined our YouTube chat, and he had some words for you, Wai. I don't know if you want to rebuttal.
Oh, I heard it. And Andrew Thompson, I don't know who you think you are. I know you and I have a very long history. I've sat at your dinner table. I've promised your mother, Ruthie, that I would take care of you. And I guess I'm going to have to break that promise, because on November 19th, is that when the show's coming out?
Yeah, I think
yes.
so. Yeah, sure.
On November 19th, on the upNXT Patreon Survivor
correct.
Series Fantasy Draft, I'm going to have to show you who the real boss is.
Wow.
Show them who the sole survivor is. We decided that this upcoming Survivor Series draft game is not just deciding who the best of the trivia. It's the undisputed champion of the Davie Portman trivia games. And, well, this one is the Survivor Series draft, and it's going to be wild. But
I'd like to win one of my own games one time.
We've not won.
It's not just a 2-horse race here. I'm here as well. You're here. John Cena's going to be here. It's going to be wild.
So we do all this stuff. Patreon.com/upnext. We have schedules posted, and $5 a month for North American Champion tier gets you access to all the shows we've done in the past, including the last time we got to talk to you, Wai. Would you like some sausage? That was a fun show. So, we do so many shows, including our free Batman reviews that are coming out usually monthly. I know the next one is we were bully choked into doing the Mask of the Phantasm, so we're going to be doing that as well. But at Up Next Podcast on Twitter and Instagram for all that stuff. we do a lot of podcasts, and it's fun.
It is incredible value for $5. Just a ton of awesome content. And with you guys, it's like I totally understand like people's addiction to like podcasts, because I'll just listen to you guys talk about anything, and it's like entertaining to me. So do support our friends at upNXT and listen to all their stuff. As for us, of course, Power Struggle took place today with WH Park and John Pollock. Have that review up there on our Patreon at patreon.com/postwrestling. And then John and I are probably going to be back on Monday talking about Raw. Would you care to join us for that, guys? All 3 hours.
I still think Retribution is a rib. I don't believe that it's actually programming that has been put on TV. But yeah, no, sorry, I'm busy Monday. We're busy, right? Yeah, we're.
I think I'm having my
hair
cut.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, okay, all right. Take us out of here. This is your channel.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, Wai, thank you for joining us on our channel, on your channel. Like we said, we would love to be able to come over and watch some wrestling, but times are hard these days, you know? So thank you, Wai, for hanging out and talking all about Full Gear. This was a blast, and I know people in our YouTube chat and anyone listening to this feed, I think we had a lot of fun. I missed you, Wai. I don't know if you know.
Likewise,
I miss you guys.
Man.
Miss you.
Oh, of course, likewise. Well, virtually, at least we have this. Well, at least we have Zoom. You know, I got that figured out. So,
shout out Zoom.
Hope to do this again.
Yes,
absolutely.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to us talk about wrestling for way too long, and I appreciate everyone who listens to Post Wrestling and to upNXT, and it's great. So take care. Goodbye. Be safe, and yeah.
I quit.
I quit.
Ahoy!